report and give it to the board members. That is.
All right. All right, it is now 9:04 a.m. on Tuesday, June 25th, 2024, and I call to order this meeting of the Maine Gambling Control Board. My name is Steve Silver. I'm the board chair. Before we go any further, I'll just explain the circumstances under which we're holding this meeting and set up some ground rules for how we'll be conducting the meeting. This is a hybrid meeting. The physical location of this meeting is at 45 Commerce Drive, Augusta, Maine. We're in the Fallen Heroes room today. We also have a virtual attendance option via Zoom, which is the screen in front of me, which is a different viewpoint for me today. And for the board, we have a remote participation policy adopted by the board in July 2021. And we have one board member attending via Zoom. The board expects that members of the public who attend the board meeting virtually will be able to provide public comment to the same extent as members of the public who attend in person. If you're on Zoom, please mute your devices until it's time to talk. The Gambling Control Unit, on behalf of the board, posted notices of this video conference on its website with instructions on how members of the public can access the meeting. In addition, the unit, on behalf of the board, posts agendas in advance of the meeting. They send them to those who request it, so it's also posted on the website. I checked last week and that was done, so thank you. So this time I'll introduce the other board members first that we have a quorum. So when I call your name, please identify yourself to the public by raising your hands, it shows on the video, then introduce yourself and where you're from. So we'll start with you, Ms. Green.
Good morning, Sarah Green, South Portland.
Mr. Hanslip.
Good morning, Joe Hanslip calling from Sanford.
Ms. Bickmore is not on. Okay. And I know Chief March is out. My name is Steve Silver. I'm from South Portland. So we've got 3 members present, which is a quorum. So we can move forward. Also note that Executive Director Bill Champion's here. We obviously have Mallory Riley here and Inspector Supervisor Vicki Gardner, and then bookending me to keep me in line, Assistant Attorney General Jennifer Willis and Bill Vantis are here. So before we move on to our agenda, I actually need to amend the agenda. We need to take a vote on that and achieve that, Jen.
Go ahead and I think take a vote just to be clear.
Sure. So I need to amend the agenda. We're going to discuss 2 issues that were brought to the board's attention by several inspectors from the Gambling Control Unit, which the board is aware of. I sent some of those emails yesterday. So it's a quick vote to amend the agenda. Moved by Ms. Green. Mr. Hanslip, you want to second that?
Seconded.
All right, let's take a quick roll call vote. Ms. Green.
Aye.
Mr. Hanslip.
Aye.
My aye as well. So as brief background, I was contacted in late April by an inspector complaining about a change in work schedules. Given that the board does not control the unit's employee schedules, nor does the board get involved in HR matters, I passed along the inspector's concerns to Director Champion, Public Safety Commissioner Sashta, and the Attorney General's office. That was about it for a month. And then right after our May board meeting in Hollywood, I received a series of emails and phone calls from this inspector in May and June that grew increasingly hostile. They were calling and emailing my work phone and email multiple times per day. It got close to me honestly contacting police, given the tone of the communication, the frequency of the communications. As you can imagine, the work phone ringing every hour is not appreciated. So let me remind everyone, if you need to reach me for some reason, you can email me at mgcb1@icloud.com, as in Maine Gambling Control Board, MGCB. You can also contact the unit. Mallory knows how to get me if it's urgent. So that also makes life easier to the extent we get a phone request. So everything's, kept in line and we can search that a little easier. But from these communications, there were a litany of employment-related issues that I assume the union and state HR are working out. But there were also some allegations about Director Champion not following the board's directions and a potential lapse in oversight and inspections of the casinos. This individual has contacted numerous state legislators and the media, which there was a story yesterday in the Bangor Daily News, And then in June, a couple weeks ago, a second inspector contacted me with similar complaints, but this time mentioned self-exclusions at casinos and issuing temporary gaming licenses. So given that this touched upon things that the board deals with, I asked Commissioner Sawchuk to attend this morning to address what's going on, answer any questions the board may have, obviously bearing in mind that I doubt the commissioner can comment on an active labor agreement that HR is handling. I should also remind the board that we can go into executive session if we believe it's appropriate to do so. I prefer to have this conversation in public, but if we get into issues that I think we need to go into executive session, we can discuss that and go from there. So before I turn it over to Commissioner Sawchuk, I also want to take the opportunity to remind everyone, I think in this room knows, but maybe those on Zoom, it's become apparent recently that certainly the public and our own state legislators don't seem to know the difference between the Gambling Control Unit and the Gambling Control Board. The board regulates the ownership and operation of slot machines, table games, and electronic table games, the distribution of those at slot machine facilities and casinos. That's by statute. You can look that up. Lists all of our powers. The legislature also tasked the board with the oversight of advanced deposit wagering, which is online horse wagering. You all know that we meet in public. Everything we do is in public. I can't even speak with the other board members unless it's done in a public forum. So sometimes things take a little longer. So you need to have a meeting to address this. The legislature placed daily fantasy sports and sports wagering under the control of the executive director of the Gambling Control Unit, not the board. The unit also oversees charitable gaming and bingo. The unit is the full-time staff that administers and enforces Maine's gambling laws and rules. There were proposals this past legislative session to legalize iGaming that would place authority under the director of the unit rather than the board. That's the legislature's decision. And only the legislature can change that. So if you think that the board can do something about sports betting, you're wrong. Talk to your state reps in Augusta. If they want to change things, they certainly can. But that's the board's authority. So I want to make sure we're all on the same page with that. So with that, I'll turn it over to Commissioner Sawchuk.
Sure. You use this thing on a regular basis?
You
Is that-
certainly
is that what I'm
can.
heading? Okay. All right. Well, good morning. My name is Mike Sawchuk. I am the Commissioner for the Department of Public Safety. Certainly, I want to say thank you to the board for having me today. And above and beyond that, thank you for what you do. I know your worlds are already busy. You volunteer your time to do your homework and to help us with the regulation of gambling, as the chair just mentioned, under that purview every day, day in and day out. So we do truly appreciate your work and your efforts. And it's good to see everybody here today. Some of you haven't seen it quite some time, but it is good to see you nonetheless. So I apologize for not stopping in more frequently. But the chair did ask me to stop in today to kind of update the board and anybody else that's present on kind of where we are with a couple of questions that are pretty public at this point. And I guess I'll go back and I'll try not to put you to sleep with bureaucratic process, right? But really what this thing looks like is as a new commissioner coming in with Governor Mills in early 2019. One of my things was running all over the state, meeting with everybody. I went to both casinos and did a pretty cool tour backstage and talked to them about process, met with inspectors in their world, met with various troop commanders, dispatched all over the state. And one of the things that I did as well is talk to all of our bureau directors, as you can imagine, to include Director Chan. And I don't have it in writing, but I can tell you that I guarantee the first conversation I had, we talked about a transition from central monitoring to facility-based monitoring, because that's something that he was familiar with, something that would save the state a lot of money while, by the way, continuing to accomplish the mission of regulation and overall management of the slot machine. And so that was something that he had mentioned back in 2019. The bureaucratic process piece of this is that every year, whether it's a legislative session or budgetary process, we get marching orders as departments that says that we're going to focus on these things, we're going to focus on those things. We don't want to talk about that right now. And so we talked about that transition over the years and just never really made the push at the legislative level for a lot of different reasons. A lot of that is timing, who's where, what do we think we want to work in now. We only have so much bandwidth as an entity, as an administration to fight some of these things. And so the decision was made, we're not going to deal with those things at that time. So then it comes up, ultimately it makes the queue. It is something that's addressed by the legislature. As the chair had mentioned, I'm not don't profess to be an expert in it. Certainly not legislative process, certainly not rulemaking. Those things give me a migraine in most ways. But the reality here is that when you look at that, it's all very public. It's all very regimented. We go in, we testify, there's public hearings, there's comments. If you talk about sports wagering in particular, I'll guarantee there's at least 20 conversations that I have with people behind the scenes, from summaries to testimony, checking with the governor's office. Are good. Milton talks to everybody and their brother. You go and then you testify in public at a podium, very similar to this, and you chat it up, right, about what you think is right as a subject matter expert. And Milton's my subject matter experts on the gambling side. I've joked for years, I don't buy lottery tickets. You don't want me running a gambling control unit. Austin heard me say that joke in the past. So I lean on people that have decades worth of experience. And that means everybody in the gambling control unit that can provide some background on what we're trying to do one way or the other. So ultimately, the legislature makes a decision. They make a vote. We don't vote clearly in these kind of scenarios. There are often times when stuff comes out, I'm like, I don't know where that came from. That must have been a decision that they made behind closed doors, or where did that vote come from? I don't remember that testimony, but that's fine. That's part of the process. We don't vote on what the final law is going to be, where it's going to land. It's going to be at the board. It's going to be with the unit. It's going to exist at all. We'll make a pitch if we think it's appropriate, right? Because when we talk about these bills, it's for something, it's against something, or it's either for or against something, which means we're just providing some background information and just saying, do whatever you think is appropriate. We're not going to make an argument one way or the other. So in cases like this, we make an argument and say, this is what we want to do and this is why. They make a decision ultimately what they're doing. And then we move forward, right? So that doesn't mean everybody agrees, clearly. Not everything is unanimous coming out of out of the State House complex over there. This is not the nature of the beast. So there are additional processes to that. A bill makes its way through, we have a date to implement, and we go, okay. So now Milt goes and talks to HR. He talks to the Attorney General's office. He says, what do I need to do to make this thing happen? If we're going to do sports wagering as an example, I'm going to ask for a schedule change for our inspector, because I think I need to change that in order to facilitate this transition. So then they, as our subject matter experts, say, this is what you need to do with that. We need to provide 30 days notice. We need to send them an official notice saying this is what's going to happen. Then they get an opportunity to look at that. So that's what happened. He got guidance from those subject matter experts, our folks, the folks that we pay for advice, legal advice or HR advice, and said, okay, so this is what you need to do. Notify them here, do these different things. It's going to start an impact bargaining process. All this stuff is process oriented, right? This is the part where we fall asleep. So a grievance is filed that says we don't want to change schedule. We say, okay, so there's a process to deal with that thing, right? And then there's an impact bargaining process to talk about, this is impacting my world. I want there to be some kind of compensation, whatever that happens to be, for the impact on my position, my life. So that's a process that starts. None of those things stop the mandate through the legislature to say you have to kick off this transition on such and such a date. We don't just pause that just because there's a grievance or something else that's happening. So we continue to move forward, even though some people disagree with where we're heading. And really, that's where we're at now. There's an active grievance that was filed in early May that's already working its way through the process. There's an impact bargaining process that's working its way through the process. I've had a couple of great meetings from my perspective with the inspectors, which to me was very enlightening. Again, those are folks that are working the floor every day, and they're doing the work, and they're coming back and saying, "He said this is something that I don't agree with. We don't know what to do with that." So out of those meetings comes a laundry list of things that I'm going to follow up on. So then I have meetings with HR. I have meetings with the attorney general, just myself, to say, does this make any sense? They're talking about self-exclusion, talking about temporary licensing or permitting. They're talking about all these different things. And all I can tell you, and what I will tell the board, is that I'm incredibly confident and comfortable where we are, the decisions that have been made. They're lawful, and there are definitely within the authority of the gambling control unit and director to make. But again, that doesn't mean that everybody's going to agree with that. That doesn't mean at the end of a grievance process or impact bargaining that it may not change. We think we're right in this scenario. Other people think that they're right in that scenario. We'll figure it out. It's not a personal deal. Business is business. And we're trying to move forward with a big transition, one of many that have occurred over the last 5.5 years since I've been around here. So with that being said, I think that what I heard back from inspectors, I would put this in a couple different buckets and for the board to hear and the general public is that one, I think is pretty simple around communication. And that the inspectors want more communication from the unit to, again, subject matter experts, boots on the ground. So, and I think that, Supervisor Gardner would say the same, is that communication is key in being looped in on these scenarios and utilizing their strengths and their skill sets before we make decisions is important. So there's a bucket there that I can impact control, right? That's not a grievance process. That's not a impact bargaining. That's not union stuff. That's me listening, taking a bunch of notes and going, well, that makes sense. Am I putting the director in a position to succeed by giving him the staff that he needs in order, the bandwidth in order to be able to do that? So I had a conversation with Director Champion and with Matt around what we can do to better that scenario. And that's going to include monthly meetings in person at the casino the week before board meetings so that they can sit down and talk about the upcoming agenda. They can seek input on anything that may be occurring that's impacting you and do that in person. Zoom, all this stuff is great. It's certainly got a place I didn't think existed pre-COVID, but it's worked out pretty well with some sort of things. As a guy who commutes from Wyndham every day, it's not too bad to jump on a call from time to time. So with a scenario like that, we want to open up those doors to communication. Because if you communicate, then you build trust and relationships and everything is much smoother. That's in your world. That's certainly in my world. That's my entire career. So those are things that we've already implemented. One of those meetings has already occurred. There's going to be another one tomorrow. And then moving forward, the week before an agenda, before a board meeting, there will be in-person meetings between the director, deputy director, and the inspectors and supervisors for these units that talk about those things. So I also think that there's a scenario there. If there are rules pertinent to the casinos, as an example, we want to have those conversations with the inspectors directly beforehand. So they're not members of the general public as far as testifying someplace. They can do that if they want. But we want to make sure that we're tapping in to them and their expertise in advance. So those are things that we can control. And the things I can't talk about is probably the bigger bucket, specific line items around that may fall under a grievance or may fall under impact bargaining or other. So all that being said, I do appreciate the time. I appreciate your work. I also appreciate the work of our inspectors and our supervisors that are doing the job. That's not an easy world. And I know that schedule changes, as an example, can have an impact on work. I facilitated those in different walks of life. And anytime you're going to take somebody from 5 8-hour, from 4 10s, right, 4 10-hour days to 5 8-hour days, that's going to be something that's going to impact. We understand. Again, that doesn't mean you don't do it. You may have management, you may have logistical reasons why it makes a lot of sense to do that. But people are probably going to want to ask questions around that. And in the world of unions, they may want to fight that. And that's fine. That's part of the process. And we'll see what happens. I'm not sure I said anything in there at all, but that's what I have for an update anyway. That there are some of these processes that are occurring. And I am honestly happy to try to answer any questions that you may have. But they may bump into the guardrails that I'm sure you know exist for this conversation.
Thank you. Any questions from the board for Commissioner Shasha? I guess more a general question, and I mean, are you confident at this point that everything's being done at the casinos that needs to be by the inspectors?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we have a good group of people. I also think that we're always going to look to make sure we're updating processes, that we're keeping on the cutting edge of security and reviews and regulations and updating those things as we go. And I'll give you an example that, when the director and the deputy director went out, they saw that some of the checklists are 20 years old. So when you look at that, you go, well, just maybe they're fine. Maybe there's no problem at all. But if I see something when I come in, as a commissioner 5.5 years ago here, your copier machines have a 20-year-old contract, it's probably something you should look at. If you've got an agreement, an MOU with somebody that's 20 years old and hasn't changed, you should probably take a look at that. If you've got a checklist that's 20 years old and was really initially developed for opening of the facilities versus running the facilities every day, you should probably look at that. It doesn't mean that it's some big deal, but we should probably look at those things. And we're going to be leaning on, again, the people that are doing the work every day to help us with this process. We want them to come to us and say, hey, we want to update this cool stuff. They see Vicky all the time. Vicky has a list of things. Well, let's try to change these things. Let's update this stuff. I think any industry looks to do those very things. And when I first got here, we did a lot of work with teams around processing, complaints, and investigations, and all of those kind of things, because it was necessary. So we're always going to continue to strive for the next best thing on behalf of the industries that we regulate. We want to look at everybody as a partner. And I will tell you, like the reason I'm here is because a lot of these processes are very sterile. They're behind the scenes. Stuff happens every day, right? There's 11,000 plus employees in the state of Maine. There are grievances. There are stuff that occur. Sometimes it's more visible for whatever reason, more public, and that's fine as well. That's not how we do business, which is unfortunate in many cases, because the media, who I also look at as partners in many ways, would reach out and say, hey, we'd love to interview you about what's happening. Well, I think it's a disservice to the people we work with, partners that we work with, to come out to the general public and the media and talk about a grievance, right? We wouldn't do that. But that doesn't mean that others can't write letters, social media posts, things of that nature about what's happening. That's just not our world, and it's not something that I'll ever sign on. Go ahead.
So I don't, this is somewhat tangential now it's for you or the director, and I raised this at the last meeting. In the schedule changes, we're going to 2 days a week of not having an inspector on site, is my understanding. And I guess I just don't, maybe at some point, we can address that. I don't understand that. I don't understand why it's important to have them there 5 days, but not important to have them there 2 other days, 2 of which are one of which is a very busy day. So that's an oversight issue from our perspective.
Yeah, sure. And I appreciate that. And I think that is one piece of some of the processes that are actively occurring. I will tell you very publicly in any setting that the reason that the schedule was developed the way it is because they did look at patronage numbers. They looked at previous violations. They're not there every minute that these facilities are open now. And they don't have the staff in order to do that. They may not backfill necessarily if somebody's out sick. They don't force people to do that in some circumstances. So I would say that this is not a major change when we look at the back of material to say, so when have these violations occurred in the past? By the way, the vast majority of those are self-reported by the casinos, and our inspectors come in to do an investigation after the fact. So I completely understand the question and the visual, the optics behind that. But I do think that, as an example, the facility-based monitoring system is doing a lot of the work on the slot side. We are still going to be heavily invested in the days that we are present. Sure.
This may be part of the sort of ongoing, grievance issue, but is there anything that needs to be improved or is work to improve about communications in terms of an employee in the unit having a complaint? Because it seems like there is some sense of no ability to complain. I mean, it's just curious why it led to us sort of being harassed. I mean, if it seemed that either you go to the union or there's an HR rep or there's got to be some chain of reporting it, and there was clearly a breakdown. Like maybe there wasn't, but I guess where does an employee go? Because I certainly don't want every employee of the unit thinking the board can handle their issues.
Sure.
That's not what we do.
Yeah, I know. I think that's a legitimate concern as well, or question. I do think that unions being what they are, and I've got a long history as a key board member of various unions as well as on the management side for a number of years now. There's a natural process there. On my end, long before you get to that level, it's working that up through your chain, right? You talk to your supervisor and say, I don't quite understand why that's happening. There's another level of supervision that can continue to work its way up. And then we try to figure out what the answer is. And then I think on my end, on the communication side, no matter what the answer is, whether people agree with it or not, you have the ability to tell them what that is, right? There's no surprise. And I think that's where this monthly meeting in person, a lot of that can come from. You're not shipping that down through an email chain. I'm sitting down to talk to all of my inspectors. In this case, twice a month, one with one facility, one with the other. So everybody's going to hear that message in person, and everybody's going to have an opportunity to say, geez, I don't get it, right? I do this every day. That doesn't make any sense. And so we can have those conversations, try to work those things out. If that doesn't work and somebody thinks that they need to grieve something or do whatever they need to do, then feel free to do it. But, you know, I've got decades of experience of being able to have a conversation in a hallway somewhere and try to figure it out.
Yeah.
That's not always the case, but there are also formal processes around, okay, if you communicate it, you have a problem, go ahead and file a grievance, we'll try to figure it out. I hope it doesn't come to that every time for us either, because that's not good for our partners, our employees, our constituents. It's not good for them either. But
Yeah, I think my concern, I don't know if the rest of the board shares it, but if there is an issue that folks feel comfortable going somewhere, and I don't know what that is, right? You need to establish that, and that, you know, if it's Matt, if it's Bill, whoever, that they're open and receptive to that. If there's, you know, the consequences of reporting something people feel needs to be reported. So that's just a statement to respond to that. But I think that's my concern of, you know, I deal with employment law every day, right? So
sure.
that folks know where to go, how to do it, and that they're not going to be retaliated or other consequences for speaking up.
Well, and I agree with that completely. Retaliation is a big word, one that's thrown around periodically, one that I'm not seeing in this situation. Just because you're making changes, as an example, for a checklist or something else, doesn't mean that you're retaliating, right? That means that, from my perspective, we're managing a unit, we're making changes, we're evolving, we're doing those things, and we're responsible for doing those things. I think that our constituents, the state of Maine, people that utilize these facilities and otherwise, you know, they deserve that kind of coverage. And our people deserve to work in a location where they feel comfortable bringing things forward. I couldn't agree with that more. Absolutely true.
Any other questions from the board? I see Ms. Bickmore's on too. Joe or Kelly, anything for the commissioner? Okay. Well, I appreciate being here.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I'll thank you again. If you need something, I'll have to stop back by. All right, thank you. Let's have a good day.
Okay. All right, so now we're going to move on. We have a couple meeting minutes to approve with different attendees. So first up is the March 19th, 2024 meeting, which Joe and Sarah, you were at with me. So we need to approve those unless anyone has any changes.
So great.
Seconded.
All right, and Ms. Bickmore, we'll just you won't, I guess, abstain or?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just abstain on this one, but we'll start with you, Ms. Green.
Aye.
Mr. Hanslett?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. So those are approved, and then the May 21st, 2024 meeting minutes. Now there's one typo. It's on page 5, section 9. It just actually refers to me, but doesn't capitalize silver, so it just makes it confusing. It's
Okay.
some random coin in there or something. But other than that, we can, I think, comfortable approving them as is with that one change. And we were all there, so we can all vote. Someone wants to move.
I would actually make that.
Oh, got another one?
Yeah, I have E on the end of my last. Oh, okay.
Where's that? Has that been like the case all the time?
I think so, I just noticed it. Anyway, I'm doing members present.
I usually do that one was the typo.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll fix those.
Thank you.
Too many colors. All right, we get like a brown and a gold on the board. Okay, well, other than those typos,
Green, so moved.
okay,
Seconded.
all right, let's take a roll call vote. Ms. Green.
Aye.
Ms. Bickmore,
Aye.
Mr. Hanslip,
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. All right, so we got those approved. We'll get those posted on the website shortly after this meeting. So with that, we'll go to the operations report from Inspector Supervisor Vic Gardner.
Good morning. The operations report for June 2025 or 25th, 2024 is for May 2024. There were 11 shipments of machines and or associated equipment shipped to or from a licensed facility. On-site inspectors completed 34 checklists, which resulted in 0 formal and 0 minor violations. There were 2 minor violations reported by the casinos, and they will be monitored on the activity list or, activity log. There were 0 patron complaints and 12 self-exclusions. The facility-based monitoring system transition was completed on Friday, June 14th by both facilities. For those inspectors unable to attend the transition process, GLI is providing separate training for the verification of software and slot machine security. And that training is scheduled for this coming week, June 26th at Hollywood and June 27th at Oxford Casino for the inspectors, and I guess a couple auditors are also going to join in. The police reports are calls for service. Oxford had 22 calls for service by Oxford PD, 4 in the parking lot, which included intoxications and motor vehicle crashes, 18 at the casino, intoxication, but mostly it was security details because of risk there. Hollywood Casino had 7 calls for service by Bangor PD, 3 in the parking garage, erratic operations, PD crash or property damage crash, 911 hangout, 4 inside the casino that included a criminal mischief, a drug call, 911 hangout, and a citizen's assist.
Any questions, Ms. Gardner? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to our financial report. Looks like Auditor Amanda Spencer will handle this one.
Total casino tax revenue paid to the state of Maine increased by 0.85% in May 2024 for both facilities compared to the same months in 2023. 2024 year-to-date tax revenue collected from the casinos was $27,557,552 and $797, a decrease of 3.12% or $885,874 compared to the same months in the prior year. Specifically by casino, the Oxford Casino reported total net win from slot machines of 7.68% in May 2024, with a reported total win from table games of 20.52% in May 2024. The Hollywood Casino reported total net win from slot machines of 8.47% in May 2024, with a reported total win from table games of 18.79% in May 2024. In the area of advanced deposit wagering, we observed an increase of 22.5% for May 2024 compared to the same months in 2023. 2024 year-to-date tax revenue collected from in-state and out-of-state races was $92,023, a decrease of 6.7% or $6,597 compared to the same months in the prior year.
Thank you. Any questions, Ms. Spencer?
I have a question for you. So, well, or both. So obviously we have a decrease. We assume it's being somewhat offset by, sports gambling. Is it possible to get reports, even though it isn't under our purview, of the tax collected there, so we can see how it's balancing out?
Those numbers are available on the website
Well, could they be in our packet?
under sports wagering. I'll send you the link.
I think what Ms. Green is asking is at the meeting that we can put, we really only need the total numbers.
Yeah.
Put it in the
Yep.
PDF. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you. All right, with that, we will turn it over to Executive Director Champion for his report.
Just kind of going to repeat a little bit of what Vicki already mentioned, but the transition from the central facility-based monitoring system went well. It was completed Friday, June 14th. The unit auditors worked with the finance departments of both casinos, and the weekly payments have been completed without a hitch. GLI, who led the transition, will be providing a summary report of findings and will forward that report to, and I will forward that report to the board upon receipt. And that's my report. It was a transition month.
Okay, that might be the shortest report I've ever given. Yeah. Any questions for Director? Okay. So we're fully up and running with that switch?
Yes.
All right, moving on. We've got, well, a couple licenses, but before that, we actually have renewal of a board resolution, which is resolution 13. This is something we did, I don't remember when I was here, but in the past couple of years, in terms of reviewing renewal applications, the initial ones come to the board, renewals, we were trying to weed out ones that didn't have major changes, so we weren't taking up all our meetings with license renewals. So this, the only change, correct me if I'm wrong, someone, the only change in this, the draft resolution removed the address change. So this would say that the application can still come before the board if there's changes to executives, changes to ownership structure, adverse actions, or charges, court charges pending against the company. We can certainly alter that anyway the board thinks needs to be done, but that's what the basis of this is. So, because we have a bunch each meeting, 5 or 6. So, you know, I think they'll still probably be the same number unless we, you know, shift some of these criteria. I'm personally more concerned about adverse actions, charges versus changes to, you know, key executives or ownership, but maybe we want to know that. I don't know if anyone has thoughts.
I'd like to keep key executives in there and minor change. Just doing this minor change about address change.
Any other thoughts, Joe or Kelly? Okay. So what this does is it'll take it, and we can rescind this at any time, so it removes it, but, you know, technically it will expire in 2 years, so certainly, you know, we can take some time to see how this affects things, change it, but I don't expect it will impact really anything unless we get that rare application that just adopts this and nothing else, but, so with that, and that was it, right? That was the change? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve revised resolution 13.
So moved, hand slip.
Thank you.
Second,
All right. Okay, let's take a roll call vote. Ms. Green.
Aye.
Ms. Bickmore.
aye.
Mr. Hanslip.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. All right, so got that updated. All right, with that, we've got a couple license renewals. So first up, is Konami Gaming Inc. This is an application for the renewal of their slot machine distributor license pursuant to 8 MRSA Section 1001 at SEC. Not the for proceeding, instead will receiving the opinion of board staff, supported by evidence contained during the investigation, will provide the applicant the opportunity to be heard as well as the public. Is there anyone here from Konami Gaming Inc.? I don't think so. Okay, seeing none, I think probably one of these Attorney General has some questions for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Does any member of the board have any reason such as personal bias or conflict of interest that would prevent him or her from rendering a partial decision in this matter? Seeing none, does any other person present at the hearing believe that there's any reason that would prevent a board member from rendering a partial decision in this matter? So please stand or raise your virtual hand, state your name for the record, state your objection, if the basis for that objection. Being and hearing none, if there are objections to the pre-hearing proceedings, that is the procedure of this case up to this point, please stand or raise your virtual hand, state your name for the record, state the objection in case of that objection. Seeing and hearing none, Mr. Chair, you may proceed.
Okay, and for all of these today, the board has received copies of documents, the board staff is relying upon the sport's opinion. Those documents become part of the record. Complete investigation has been made available for inspection by the board. Copies of the complete investigation are not available for public distribution at this time, since some of that is confidential. But if anyone wants a copy of the public portions, please speak with Director Champion. We'll arrange to have those provided to you. Any other evidence such as conclusions of board staff, information provided today by the board staff, statements made, or documents provided by the applicant in public comment will also become part of the record. And I should add, this would have been one that didn't come before us. They had one single disciplinary action since their last renewal. A tiny fine from the Okagon Band Gaming Commission. So, other than that, we can see this. But with that, Detective Armstrong.
Yes, sir.
All right. Take it away.
Pursuant to Title 8, Section 1005, subsection 2 of the Maine Revised Statutes, the Department of Public Safety is responsible for investigating the qualifications of each applicant before a license or registration is issued and reporting to the board the results of any such investigation. Konami Gaming Inc., Mr. Thomas Gingoli, applied for renewal of the company's slot machine distributor's license on March 3rd, 2023. Excuse me. The company disclosed, and it was verified, that since the company's last application for a board license, there have been no changes to the company's address. There have been no changes to the key executives of the company or any parent or intermediate affiliates of the company. There have been no changes to the ownership structure of the company or any parent or intermediate affiliates of the company. There have been adverse actions taken against the company or any parent or intermediary affiliates of the company by any other regulatory agencies, and there are charges pending against the company or any parent or intermediate affiliates of the company in any state or federal court. The company submitted its federal and state tax returns for the preceding year, 2022, and copies of its internally prepared financial statements for the current year, 2023, as the close of the most recent fiscal quarter prior to application. Those financial documents and other documents as required were supplied to our financial review contractor, Whipfly. Whipfly reported that the company Konami Gaming Inc. appears to have sufficient financial assets to meet any financial obligations imposed by the board. Additionally, the key executives for Konami Gaming Inc. were found to have demonstrated financial responsibility as defined the rules governing the board. The department has investigated the qualifications of Konami Gaming Inc. and has determined that it meets the board's requirements for renewal of its slot machine distributor's license. Specifically, Konami Gaming Inc. and its principals continue to meet the qualifications for a license set out in Title 8, Section 1016 and 1019, and meets the requirements of Board Rules, Chapter 2, Section 3. Therefore, after my verification of the documents submitted, interviews or inquiries, the financial review by Whipfly, and the final review by Director Champion, it is the opinion of the department that Konami Gaming Inc. is suitable to be continually licensed as a slot machine distributor in the state of Maine.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Detective Armstrong? All right, any public comment on this application? All right, hearing none and seeing none. Is there a motion on the application of Konami Gaming Inc. for renewal licensure as a slot machine distributor?
So moved, Green.
Seconded, hand slip.
Okay, any discussion amongst the board? All right, let's take a vote. This will be to approve, renewal licensure. Ms. Green.
Aye.
Ms. Bickmore.
Aye.
Mr. Hanslip.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Having met all the requirements of licensing pursuant to Title 8, Chapter 31, Konami Gaming Inc. will be licensed as a slot machine distributor in the state of Maine. Of course, we thank them for their continued desire to do business in Maine. All right, next one. Next one up is the application of U.S. Playing Card Company be licensed as a gambling services vendor pursuant to 8 MRSA 1001 at SEC. Again, it's not a adjudicatory proceeding, and the public and the applicant will have an opportunity to be heard if necessary. Is there anyone here from the applicant? All right. With that, before we proceed, turn it back over to Assistant Attorney General.
Thank you. Does any member of the board have any reason such as personal bias or conflict of interest that would prevent him or her from rendering a partial decision in this matter? Seeing and hearing none, does any other person present at the hearing believe that there is any reason that would prevent any board member from rendering a partial decision in this matter? So please stand or raise your virtual hand and state your objection based on that objection. Seeing and hearing none, if there are objections to any pre-hearing proceedings and procedure of this case up to this point, please stand, state your name, or raise your virtual hand and state your name for the record and state the objection in basis of that objection. Seeing and hearing none, Mr. Chair, you may proceed.
One thing before we turn to Detective Armstrong, just to be aware of, I don't know, Bill or whoever else, they didn't check, they didn't check the box of what they're applying for. And then on the application itself, they were checking the yeses and nos, the changes in executives, ownership, and then when it asked about adverse actions, but they marked anything. There's an attachment with them, so you can figure out what it is, but like, to make sure the application actually, because when you go through these, you don't see that it's marked, may not pay attention to the full attachment. So that's my gripe about that one, but pretty minor. Moving on, Detective Armstrong.
Sorry. Pursuant to Title 8, Section 1005, subsection 2 of the Maine Revised Statutes, the Department of Public Safety is responsible for investigating the qualifications of each applicant before a license or registration is issued and reporting to the board the results of any such investigation. The United States Playing Card Company Compliance Manager, Ms. Stephanie Crummert, applied for renewal of the company's gambling services vendor license on March 22nd, 2024. The company disclosed and it was verified that since the company's last application for a board license, there have been no changes to the company's address. There have been changes to the key executives of the company or any parent or intermediate affiliates of the company. There have been changes to the ownership structure of the company or any parent or intermediate affiliates of the company. There have been adverse actions taken against the company or any parent or intermediary affiliates of the company by any other regulatory agencies, and there are no charges pending against the company or any parent or intermediate affiliates of the company in any state or federal court. The company submitted its federal and state tax returns for 2022. Those financial documents and other documents as required were supplied to our financial review contractor, Whitfly. Whitfly reported that the company, the United States Playing Card Company, appears to have sufficient financial assets to meet any financial obligations imposed by the board. Additionally, the key executives for the United States Playing Card Company were found to have demonstrated financial responsibility as defined by the rules governing the board. The department has investigated the qualifications of the United States Playing Card Company, has determined it meets the board's requirements for renewal of its gambling services vendor license. specifically the United States Playing Card Company, and its principals continue to meet qualifications for a license set out in Title 8, Section 1016 and 1019, and meets the requirements of Board Rules, Chapter 2, Section 5. Therefore, after my verification of the documents submitted, interviews or inquiries, a financial review by Whitfly, and a final review by Director Champion, it is the opinion of the department that the United States Playing Card Company is suitable to be continually licensed as a gambling services vendor in the state of Maine.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Detective Armstrong? All right, moving on. Any public comment on this application? All right, hearing and seeing none. Is there a motion on the application of U.S. Playing Card Company renewal licensure as a gambling service vendor?
So moved, Green.
Second.
All right, thank you. Any discussion we need to have? Okay, let's take a vote. This is to approve the application. Ms. Green. Ms. Bickmore.
Aye.
Mr. Hansley.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Having met all the requirements of licensing pursuant to Title 8, Chapter 31, U.S. Playing Card Company will be licensed as a gambling service vendor in the state of Maine, and we thank them for doing business in Maine. Next up on the agenda is an application AGS LLC that I believe we need to delay that.
They've since their application, they've had some updates that they haven't brought forward to us, so I'd like to table them until the next meeting to update their application.
Do we need to vote on that?
I would recommend it.
Okay. So I would move to approve Director Champion's recommendation to table this application until the next meeting.
I'm just curious, what did you request that they haven't, that's delaying the application?
They didn't furnish an update. They disclosed there were some executive changes, and now they're saying there wasn't, and so I need a little time to update that application. So it's a change in the application.
Just aim for that.
Anyone want a second? Awesome. Okay. All right. Any other questions or discussion? All right. So this is a motion to table the application of AGS LLC. We'll start with you, Ms. Green.
Aye.
Ms. Bickmore.
Aye.
Mr. Hanson.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Okay. Moving right along. We have the application of JCM American Corp. For renewal license as a gambling services vendor. We will, of course, provide the applicant and the public an opportunity to be heard. Is the applicant here? Okay, before we proceed, or back over to Assistant Attorney General Mantis.
Thank you. Does any member of the board have any reason such as personal bias or conflict of interest that would prevent him or her from rendering impartial decisions? Seeing and hearing none, does any other person present at the hearing believe that there's any reason that would prevent the board member from rendering impartial decisions in this matter? So please stand, raise your virtual hand, state your name for the record, state your objection to the case. Seeing and hearing none, if there are objections to the proceedings, that is the procedure of this case points, stand, raise your hand, state your name for the record, state your objection to the case. Seeing and hearing none, Mr. Chair, you may proceed.
Okay. Remember, if anyone wants a copy of the public materials for these applications, to contact Director Champion. All right, seeing as the applicant is not here, well, actually, before I turn over to Tech Armstrong, Bill, what is JCM American? What's that payment system?
Yeah. I would imagine they have something they do with like cash machines, like sorters and kiosks, stuff of that nature.
Hi, it's Eric Fritz from so they are Japanese cash machines. They produce bill validators mostly. I'm pretty sure Bangor uses them also as a bill acceptor for all their slot machines. That's their main business.
Still, I think you've raised this a couple times. A section on the application that's
I actually have 3 notes on that, but
Okay.
on applications, and I feel like a broken record, you should have a description of service by the vendor. What do they do? I would-
Specifically in Maine.
Specifically in May, I would love to see the impact of the vendor. So are they at both casinos, just one casino? Do they provide 1 slot machine, 100 slot machines? But what, because it's so hard to assess them with no context of what they do. And particularly going back to our last applicant, it would be really nice to have a standard format for adverse actions. So that we're not too busy having to read through in the last one, for example, every single state. To find out what
Sometimes they
exactly-
give us 10 years of history.
Yeah, I think that having, so I think that there really needs to be, we need to address the application itself. And from a science perspective, I think asking someone to put something on a USB drive, in an electronic format, is really bad practices.
All right, so maybe we need a new business item at a future meetings. Redo the application.
I think so.
We can discuss that later, but all right. So let's turn it over to Detective Armstrong at this point. Revisit this conversation.
Pursuant to Title 8, Section 1005, subsection 2 of the Maine Revised Statutes, the Department of Public Safety is responsible for investigating the qualifications of each applicant before a license or registration is issued and reporting to the board the results of any such investigation. JCM American Corporation's Miss Tracy Gaiman applied for renewal of the company's gambling services vendor license on April 19th, 2024. The company disclosed and it was verified that since the company's last application for a board license, there have been no changes to the company's address. There have been no changes to the key executives of the company or any parent or intermediate affiliates of the company. There have been changes to the ownership structure of the company or any parent or intermediate affiliates of the company. There have been no adverse actions taken against the company or any parent or intermediary affiliates of the company by any other regulatory agencies, and there are no charges pending against the company or any parent or intermediate affiliates of the company in any state or federal court. The company submitted its federal and state tax returns for 2022. Those financial documents and other documents are required was supplied to our financial review contractor, Whipfly. Whipfly reported that the company's JCM American Corporations appears to have sufficient financial assets to meet any financial obligations imposed by the board. Additionally, the key executives for JCM American Corporations were found to have demonstrated financial responsibility as defined by the rules governing the board. The department has investigated the qualifications JCM American Corporation has determined that it meets the board's requirements for renewal of its gambling services vendor license. Specifically, JCM American Corp and its principals continue to meet the qualifications for a license set out in Title 8, Sections 1016 and 1019, and meets the requirements of Board Rules, Chapter 2, Section 5. Therefore, after my verification of the documents submitted, interviews or inquiries, the financial review by Whipfly, and the final review by Director Champion, it is the opinion of the department that JCM American Corp is suitable to be continually licensed as a gambling service vendor in the state of Maine.
All right, any questions for Detective Armstrong?
Detective Armstrong, Sarah Green. Is this a new company or a company that's been reformed? And the reason I ask is it's an anomaly to have no adverse actions. I don't think I've ever seen an application come before us that had no adverse actions or litigation. So I'm just curious about the status of the company.
No, this is not a new company. It's been around for a while. As far as explaining the adverse actions, I have,
It's great, that's good, but it's
Yeah.
so unusual.
but they have been around for a while. We've renewed them a couple times before.
Thank you.
Trying to figure out what, but that's all awesome. So it's a lot of corporation holding company, but seems to be doing well.
I think it's the first application I've seen. It didn't have any, no litigation, no adverse action, just something.
Okay. All right, any other questions for Detective Armstrong? All right, hearing none. Any public comment on this application? Okay. All right, so is there a motion on the application of JCM American Corporation for renewal licensure as a gambling services vendor?
So moved, hand slip.
All right, all set.
Second.
All right. Ms. Bickmore, thank you. Any question from the board? Comments? Okay. Let's take a vote. This will be to approve the application. Is everything on the screen?
Aye.
Ms. Bickmore,
Aye.
Mr. Hanslett,
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. I think that all the requirements licensing pursuant to Title 8, Chapter 31, JCM American Corporation will be licensed as a gambling services vendor in the state of Maine. Thank them for their desire to do business in Maine and for apparently being perfect. We're just not getting caught. As the case may be. All right, last application for today is the renewal application from L&W Gaming Inc. For their table game distributor license. Is there anyone here from L&W? Anything you want to say about this application? No? Okay. All right. Turn it over to Assistant Attorney General Mathis.
Thank you. Does any member of the board have any reason, such as personal bias or conflict of interest, that would prevent him or her from rendering a partial decision in this matter? Does any other person present at the hearing believe that there's any reason that would prevent the board member from rendering a partial decision in this matter? If so, please stand or raise a virtual hand, state your name, for the record, state your objection, basis of that objection. Being and hearing none. If there are objections to any pre-hearing proceedings, that is the procedure of this case. At this point, stand and raise virtual hand, state your name, state your objection, and the basis for that objection. Seeing and hearing none,
Okay. Just for us to know, I like the format that they use. For their, this is very nice chart. See everything. Okay. All right. We'll turn it over to you, Detective Armstrong.
Pursuant to Title 8, Section 1005, subsection 2 of the Maine Revised Statutes, the Department of Public Safety is responsible for investigating the qualifications of each applicant before a license or registration is issued and reporting to the board the results of any such investigation. Miss Destiny LaRusi, licensing analyst, LNW Gaming Inc., applied for renewal of the company's table game distributor license on April 19th, 2024. The company disclosed, and it was verified, that since the company's last application for a board license, there have been no changes to the company's address. There have been changes to key executives of the company or any parent or intermediate affiliates of the company. There have been changes to the ownership structure of the company or any parent or intermediate affiliates of the company. There have been adverse actions taken against the company or any parent or intermediary affiliates of the company by any other regulatory agencies, and there are no charges pending against the company or any parent or intermediate affiliates of the company in any state or federal court. Company submitted its federal and state tax returns for 2022. Those financial documents and other documents as required were supplied to our financial review contractor, Whitfly. Whitfly reported that the company LNW Gaming Inc. appears to have sufficient financial assets to meet any financial obligations imposed by the board. Additionally, the key executives for LNW Gaming Inc. were found to have demonstrated financial responsibility as defined by the rules governing the board. The department has investigated the qualifications of LNW Gaming Inc. and has determined that it meets the board's requirements for renewal of its table game distributor license. Specifically, LNW Gaming Inc. and its principals continue to meet the qualifications for a license set out in Title 8, Section 1016 and 1019, and meets the requirements of Board Rules, Chapter 2, Section 4. Therefore, after my verification of the documents submitted, interviews or inquiries, the financial review by Whitfly, and the final review by Director Champion, it is the opinion of the department that LNW Gaming Inc. is suitable to be continually licensed as a table game distributor in the state of Maine.
All right, any questions for Detective Armstrong? So,
It's not really a question, but in this shell game that we seem to be playing with these companies, L&W Gaming Inc., which only has now one director, right, is kind of this small little specially incorporated Nevada company, along with their others. I mean, they have their more parent company, as everyone listed as their directors, but then they have these little companies that are these offshoots, and now we're dealing with a company for our purposes that has one director. Just, perhaps
We
not-
actually have licensed, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, no, please continue.
I said we actually have licensed several other companies with the same situation where there's just like two members. I'm just saying, depending on what their functions are for the casinos, probably would make a difference on how many people and who they hire and that type
Yeah,
of
I mean,
thing.
but they're not a small company. I mean, they're a pretty massive company. They just have lots of, I don't know what the word is, lots of little companies like assume to maybe mitigate their risk and liability. But I just think that's interesting that, and there were, I don't know if historically we have, but we are now dealing with a company that has the one director. That's just my only comment on it.
I had this raised different question, which maybe one of the AAGs knows the answer or if not, could tell us in another meeting, but in terms of how we deal with, like, it's easy if, you know, a board member owns stock in the company, right? Stock, but like, looking here, BlackRock and Vanguard, major owners of this company, and probably most of us have retirement fund, some fund with that. Like, where's the line, I guess, that we should be aware of for future applications?
We'll certainly look into that and get back to you and provide you
Yeah.
sort of the statutory refusal standards.
Yeah, more curiosity as I've noticed more sort of institutional.
BlackRock's everything.
Sure, I mean, but like this is the first one I've seen Vanguard be a big one. It's a, you know, most people probably have some ownership in Vanguard, so, you know, I think it's becoming more normal. I see them have at least reportable, you know, ownership stakes in some of these companies, so.
And I think the essential question in this instance,
Yeah.
does every board member present feel that they can impartially decide this application?
Sure.
Even aware of that. And the recusal decision ultimately does come down to each individual board member making that decision for themselves. And the analysis is, you know, do you have such a financial stake that you could not possibly be impartial?
Yeah, I guess more just a question to be aware of like, what's our duty to actually go and research that? And I can tell you what company some of these funds are invested in, you know, like, is there a duty for that or is it direct ownership or whatever? I don't know.
This sounds like a good topic. We could certainly put
Yeah.
together a presentation for the next board meeting to just sort of go over how board members analyze recusal and particularly financial interests that may arise.
Yeah, I feel like there might have been one when I first joined the board, something to that effect. So it would be good to do it, especially now we have a new member.
Regularly, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, I know I've had to deal with it with firm clients, you know, that are not mine, but it could be a conflict. So anyway, that's sort of a broader conflict.
And just because you have brought it up with this particular one and have identified this, I will just ask each board member to state on the record, do you feel you can impartially decide this application, even if there is a potential financial interest that is in your portfolio somewhere that you've maybe attenuated? Does anyone have a direct conflict they feel they must recuse themselves related to this?
No.
And board member Hanslip
No, I do not.
and board member Vic.
No, I'm fine.
All right, we'll get that on the way. But I think raises good issues we should be aware of. So, all right. With that, does anyone want to move for the application of L&W Gaming Inc. renew the license service table game distributor?
agree, so.
All right. I'll second it. Any questions, comments from the board? Okay, let's take a vote. This will be to approve the application. Start with you, Ms. Green.
Aye.
Ms. Bigmore,
Aye.
Mr. Hanson.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Having met all the requirements of Life Safety Services Title 8, Chapter 31, L&W Gaming Inc. Will be licensed as a gambling service vendor, or sorry, table game distributor in the state of Maine. Of course, thank them for continuing to business here. So with that, there's no unfinished business, but we're going to move to new business. How's the board doing? Are we good to move on to the break? Okay, all right, let's keep moving. So first up, under new business, deals with the self-exclusion application process. This sort of touched upon at our last meeting. And so I don't know if I tee it up or.
Yeah, so there was a discussion about a little bit at the last meeting and evaluating self-exclusion program and how many there are and so forth and so on. And then regards certainly with the inspector schedule. And I'm just giving you this information, for consideration, but so for the first 4 months of 2024, self-exclusions on Sundays and Mondays have shown to be from 1 to 4 a month. Because at times we have had no inspectors working for call outs or the like. I would hope that as an industry supporting problem gambling initiatives, that a security supervisor can take 8 to 10 minutes of their time, 1 to 4 times a month, to complete the process when the state inspector is not available. I know what the rules say, and we can adjust accordingly. It's not disputable that when a person is ready to be excluded, they are in the state that they shouldn't be told to come back tomorrow. I know there was a discussion about giving them information that were remotely. Again, we are delaying the opportunity and my view establishing a service to our citizens of Maine. For those that talk about liability, I would direct you to the contents of the application, and I won't get into that other than waiving the release. It says, I hereby hold a release and hold harmless State of Maine Gambling Control Unit, Maine Disease Control, all Maine casinos or slot facilities, all affiliated companies. And then in the bottom of that section, and further agree, in consideration of the released parties' efforts to implement my exclusion to identify and hold harmless released parties for any and all liability suits, claims, and so forth and so on. So I guess it was just really a continuation of the conversation. And then, of course, with the schedule changes here, I went and I attended a conference in Worcester last month, I believe, with Problem Gambling, Northeast Problem Gambling Association, I guess. Massachusetts held it. And I think I mentioned the last meeting as well, that all other states, casino security does that. I know Massachusetts has a contract service provider for that, Game Sense, I believe they're called, and they may provide it as well. But and again, this is just asking for some backup a little bit, because there are cases where quite possibly we could not have an inspector on site. Obviously, Oxford is 24/7. I think our inspectors go as late as maybe 2 o'clock. And so we'll have somebody comes in at 4, 6, or 8 in the morning, or when somebody else isn't there. So again, this is just start the conversation. And I know Rory has wanted to have some input as well, but we're all in this together, and I think it's a huge issue. And it's part of the problem gambling program, so I would look for everybody to kind of help things out. Now, we have had 3, 4 exclusions that were done by security representatives because they're not considered in the application an authorized representative. They weren't able to sign it, or they felt like they weren't able to sign it. And I don't, I can't have them issue it and then have an inspector sign off on it when they weren't the one that actually reviewed the identification, right? They have to present current ID, valid ID. They have to take a picture and all those sort of things. So whoever completes it actually should sign off on it. Now, whether or not that's just a title change from authorized representative to issuee or issuer or whatever, then that would be my suggestion. But other than that, it's really, it's up to the board on what direction you want to take this in. For sure.
And I know Lori Manson's here back here. I'll turn it over to you in a minute, but I guess Milt, like, it's still a mystery to me where the money is going to from the problem gaming that we collect from the casinos. Now a ton that's collected for sports betting. Like why can't we hire more people?
Oh, there's no doubt. If with the transition to facility-based monitoring, if the activities increase and we want to hire more inspectors, we can certainly do that. It'll take about 1 year and 6 months because it has to go through procurement, it has to go through budget, it has to go through, like they just finished up the biannual, I think, for up to 2026. And so it's not like the private world, right? Where call HR and say, I want 3 more people to add to my slots department, and they put an ad out tomorrow. So that's not the way it works in state government. So I can put in for it now, but it won't happen like in the next week or even 6 months for that matter.
Well, so what department, who is it that I get asked to attend meetings so I can ask questions of? Where's the money going? It's supposed to go toward problem gaming, literally millions of dollars. It seems that we're short, ad care is not getting it now. I mean, the money's going somewhere. So who controls it?
Yeah, well, up to the point of sports wagering, AdCare or CDC was getting 100,000, and then I think they got another 25 mixed in there. And as trying to think of things, Mr. Cagman talked about, the current allocated funds pretty much get taken up by administrative processes and that sort of thing. Now, with sports wagering, I think we added another 1% of the net, and that'll also go to CDC, and then it gets, naturally, I honestly don't know what they do with it.
With the
I don't
main
know if
CDC?
there's, yes. Then they contract, I believe, I don't want to speak for Lori, but they contract with AdCare, and I believe last I heard, CDC controls the money, so I don't know.
Sound all right.
Yep.
Well, sounds like I need to contact that because putting aside the casino revenue, sports wagering just in 5 months has delivered $178,000 just for that. It's just designated for gambling addiction prevention treatment. So combine that with casino money. There's money there, and I want to know what the CDC is doing with it because this would seem like something that should be directly dealt with from those funds. But you don't have to respond to that. I'm going to request someone from the CDC to come to a future meeting. It just doesn't make sense. There's plenty of money, and it shouldn't be paid for administrative costs. It should be paid for actually preventing and treating addiction issues. So, okay, that's my tangent. But,
I like
okay, it just pisses me off. We have a need and somehow we can't access that money. And I think they need to account for it.
I mean, I've never looked into it. I don't know if CDC does an annual report like we do, but that might be something to check first. As a part of their disclosure funding and so forth, they may have a little line item for.
They do. I look, but it doesn't break down exactly what it's being going to.
I think I can address that somewhat,
Good.
if it's okay.
You want to
Sure.
take it from here? You want to introduce yourself?
Yes.
So everyone knows who you are.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lori Manson. I'm the Problem Gambling Services Coordinator at AdCare Educational Institute of Maine. We're the nonprofit agency that has had the contract with the Maine State CDC for about the past 7 years to administer problem gambling services. So, Chair Silver, just to the best that I can answer some of your questions about money and where it's going. On the Gambling Control Unit's website, there is an annual report. Most of the money that comes in from casino taxes doesn't go to problem gambling services. You can see where it's broken down, like things like the milk fund and the harness racing fund get way more than problem gambling services. So I can tell you that during the time that AdCare's had that contract, it's been $100,000 that comes to problem gambling services. That goes to Maine CDC. And about 92 of that passes through to AdCare. 8,000 is, I guess, what you would call administrative expenses, but you figure they have to have a couple of managers to help supervise that work. So it's not just going off into the atmosphere. There literally are a couple of managers that I deal with. We meet every month. They give input and direction. So then sports betting, as you know, became active in August, and 1% of that revenue, adjusted gross revenue, what it is, goes to the problem gambling addiction fund, which is great. I have been assured that that money that goes to CDC for problem gambling out of the sports betting will not just disappear. But they don't feel confident yet saying, let's immediately push that all through AdCare. They want to see how it goes over the next year or two. Before they feel comfortable like raising our contract by a lot. However, they have become more open to giving us increments. So I met with them yesterday, and our next contract year, which starts October 1st, will have increased funding. It won't be all sports betting money, but it will be incremental. We've talked about me researching what it would take to bring like Game Sense to Maine's casinos just for those 2 days when there are inspectors, but that wouldn't happen, again, that wouldn't happen like overnight. We're talking about probably.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to respond to this, but I guess my question for them would be that, by law, it's directed, that 1% is directed towards this. So it doesn't seem like to me, they gotta wait for a year to spend money on this direct issue. And you don't have to respond to my comment. Yeah. That's absurd. I mean, I can tell you basically what every month is gonna do with sports betting revenue for the rest of the year. I mean, we know that. We have data from 30+ states. Just know based on the seasons. This summer may be a slight anomaly because there's Olympic betting, but like I can pretty much predict it's gonna be. If they can't do that, then I'm happy to do the job for them. Like it's just infuriating because we're gonna finish with $400,000, maybe $500,000 specifically for this problem. They're saying we can't do anything for a while. So I guess what I would like you to do, it doesn't have to be today, is like you need to let us know when you think that you need something or more. And I'm happy to make a lot of noise with the folks who profess to care about gambling addiction and treatment, but don't seem to really want to do anything about it. It's really pissed me off. That we put a tax on this, and we're just like, we've had 5 months of consistent revenue this year, not to mention last year. They know what the money is. So,
So just to assure you that the 100,000 is coming, it's spent incredibly well.
oh, I don't doubt that.
So we make that stretch really, really fun.
Yeah, but that shouldn't have to be stretched. Like, that's my point. We have money by statute directed for this, and it should be used for that. It doesn't mean it all goes to AdCare, but maybe there's other providers. I don't know what Game Sense costs. I don't know if you have any sense of what that.
Well, it would cost a lot because we would have to prepare a space at both casinos. We'd have to have staff hired and trained that could cover that. But the other thing that I'm looking into is having coverage for online self-exclusion nights, weekends. That way we can cover that 24 hours a day. Still trying to figure out what I asked 211 if they could do it. They did not feel they had the capacity to do it, but still trying to think of ideas about cover online self-exclusion when I'm sleeping. So it's in the works, just not gonna happen again overnight. I sent out an email, I'm the chair of the National Council on Problem Gambling State Affiliate Committee, so I sent out an email to the representatives from the 34, I think it is, affiliates throughout the United States, hoping to get some like clarity, and I did not get clarity because gambling infrastructure is completely different in every single state. Every single state does it completely differently. Some of the more states with more infrastructure do have gaming agents on site 24/7, so they do handle all the self-exclusions. Some of the other states say that it's often done by casino staff, security directors, general managers. That's what Maine's been doing for, as I understand it, for a lot of years. I think they're willing to do it. Their hearts are in the right place. They really do want to help people who have come to that realization that self-exclusion is the only way they're going to be able to keep themselves out of the casino. I would hope that we could go back to that long enough for us to get this figured out.
Do you know what the fund for a healthy Maine is?
I have heard of it, yes.
Is it, I mean, they get several $1 million a year from casinos, and that looks like it's tied into the Maine CDC.
That's,
Yeah.
I think it's a nutrition program.
I think they probably do things like anti-smoking programs, I think they do with health related things. I think a lot of that money goes to the public health districts for programming.
Laura, if you could wave a magic wand, who would you have be the one that talks to the patron who decides they want to be self-excluded? What's
If I had a
gonna get the
magic
best
wand,
success
we would have something like Game Sense, where we have someone at each casino, all the hour that they're open, that anyone could come to at any time. And a lot of times it's not people needing something like self-exclusion. The Game Sense advisors serve just as someone that can educate you about the games, like what are the odds, how do you figure out the odds, and like how do you play the game, or just where they can come and take a break. But they do the self-exclusions as well. I think they come at it from that perspective of being a caring person that can direct them towards resources. I love doing self-exclusion. It's one of my favorite things to do. I wish that I could clone myself and be at both casinos. Because people are so nervous. Like recently I did a self-exclusion and the person's first words were, are you gonna give me are you gonna lecture me? And I was like, no, I'm the last person that's gonna lecture you. I'm gonna help you fill out this paperwork and then we're gonna talk about some resources. And because of what we've done in the last 18 months of having that checkbox now on the form where people who self-excluded casinos can say, yes, I want someone to contact me about resources. Our treatment network has been increasing exponentially. So that self-exclusion itself is more likely to be successful if they get counseling. So we have a lot more people accessing counseling. But in the meantime, it's really scary to me that someone is told, sorry, we can't help you. Call Lori. Because my experience is that a lot of those people won't call Lori, or if they do, it's 6 months or a year down the road when they've done a lot more harm. So it's a little bit frightening.
Sure, so we'd be happy to address the item today, the self-exclusion application process. From
Yeah.
a software perspective.
Hold on, there may be a question for Lori.
Dennis,
Joe, do you have a question for Lori?
No, I don't, but thank you.
I have one other question, maybe for Bill. So in our annual report, it says the amount transferred to the general fund, and it says with fixed amount transferred to gambling addiction service. Do we know what that amount is?
From the books like, last annual report.
Yeah, on page 12. The general fund got $7.3 million. And then italics it says fixed amount transferred to gambling addiction
Yeah,
services.
that's the 100,000 Lori referencing to.
Okay. All right, so the legislature, they can do what they want, with general fund. All right. Sounds like something that we need to go to the BLA committee about. All right, well, yeah, do you want to start or Matt?
I don't know if we offered that we're all over, but. You know, and I'll give seat to Matt on some of this because he can answer more specific operational questions. But before the inspector schedule change, you'll be identified, Blue Fresconia, with Churchill Downs, the parent company to Oxford Casino. Before the inspector change, largely inspectors were there 24/7. To my knowledge, we had almost 0 instances where there was a call out and we had to turn someone away for self-exclusion. Since the change this month alone, we've had 5 where they've shown up when there's not an inspector there, been unable to help them because the current form says authorized individual. We agree with Director Champion that the release and waiver is sufficient, but not if it's not signed by an authorized official. So I think we highlighted this issue more broadly in the last meeting where we said, there's a number of items in the rules that require an inspector to change in schedule. The rules are lagging behind because they need updating to reflect that sometimes either the casino's going to have to do an operation when an inspector's not there, or we're going to have to delay it, need clarity around a lot of items. So again, no concern with the inspector schedule itself, but just the change was made and there are rules that are still out there that address it.
Yeah, just for clarity, there were 3 that we did develop paperwork and everything was signed. And then the last 2 have requested to direct them to come back. One came back another time, there's nobody there again. And to my knowledge, none of the 5 have been banned within the state. We have banned them from the property. So paperwork is complete. Now that creates a separate list of the casino again, which is not something we've had in the last.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at like chapter 13 of the rules, and it doesn't seem to deal with this situation. Go ahead.
If I could just ask you a question, would you feel comfortable if the application was changed to say for completion by authorized official or casino employee? Would that resolve this issue from Oxford's perspective?
I believe it would. I don't know if, that might in the short term, like we could just live with that. I think ideally we would like something in the rules specifically identifies that someone can be excluded. A form can be filed by either a casino employee or an inspector. Simply because that concept of authorized individual, or who actually has that, as Chair pointed out, the rules don't really address the situation specifically. Now, maybe we can all get comfortable with the gray in the meantime, where the form was changed. I think that would be okay. My understanding, it used to be done by the property.
Yeah, the
And
whole
we have-
issue with the 2 lists, we're trying to move away from that. But I guess, what's the process if we were to open up and then chapter 13, the normal rulemaking?
Yes, so it would just be the normal rulemaking process. I think you could direct the director to change the application today in the interim, and you could also then initiate rulemaking for chapter 13 if you wanted to do those things simultaneously.
Yeah, I think it could be done pretty minimal changes. But this is me talking. If we do it, we'll have opportunity for comment. But just looking at what the casino duties are, right? This only contemplates designating someone to be the point person just for maintaining the list, sort of procedures, but not like, what do you do at 3 AM if somebody shows up? You know, all of that. So I think it could be done without a ton of heavy lifting, but I think we need to go through the process. Anyone from Hollywood have any thoughts about this?
I mean, I think we agree. I think there's two parts to the conversation. One is, are we willing to do it? Do we believe that it's important that we can self-exclude people regardless of the circumstances?
Could you just say your name? for the
Sorry.
record?
Austin Muchmore, Hollywood Casino.
Thank you.
We're fully on board with doing that when the circumstances arise, but we want the official authority to do so. And again, we echo the feeling that with a lot of things, we just seem to be making changes and then having the conversation and making the rule changes after the fact. And that's a pattern of behavior that's becoming concerning to us. And this is just one of the manifestations of that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm dealing with the situation that we gotta come up with a resolution now, right? Arose from this, so.
If we can change the form, I think we're comfortable with that.
So if we change the form, and then I think ideally, I'd like to see us go into rulemaking on chapter 13, so that you all have an opportunity to comment, maybe craft some language about what this will look like. Which may be, you know, hopefully wouldn't be a long-term thing, that we'd come back to it if we can figure out some money for, you know, some 24/7 type coverage. But that's gonna take some time.
And to Director Champion's point, we have a patchwork across our property. Some states don't allow us to do it, some states do. So, I mean, we are familiar with the process of excluding someone within our security department. But it's not consistent, but it is supported by rulemaking, obviously, where we have the regulatory authority to do so.
What, and I know Hollywood used to have their own list, that's sort of how we got down this road. I mean, what sort of burden in terms of training or anything for employees with this amount of time?
No, yeah. I mean, obviously, we can't provide the level of like almost, you know, care and you walk through the process that a trained person can, but obviously we can read them to form and get them signed up. So I don't know if it's as good, obviously, of a process, but it's not something we can accomplish.
I think, I just think we're talking about a Band-Aid again. I think that, to me, the crux of the issue isn't this, it's the inspector schedule. And I still go back to, why is it important 5 days a week they're there and not 2? Why is it, I feel like we've never had that discussion as to what the appropriate coverage should be. And I think things like this are going to keep coming up. What if we go to 3 days? What if maybe should we never have inspectors there? And it all falls the burden on the casino. I don't think that discussion has happened, and we're going to keep picking away at these little Band-Aid fixes because inspectors aren't there during a particular schedule. And I think that's a much bigger issue than how we're going to sign off on a particular exclusion.
Right, and to that point, Commissioner Sawcheck's comments earlier, that apparently they looked at situations where there was a violation as their metric for the necessity for inspectors to be there 24/7. But I mean, well, we would hope that there's never a violation, but those aren't really the issue. It's the times that the property needs to perform a machine move or bring the machine back up or something that, those aren't reflected in any sort of metric or record, but they're the things that actually occur on a Monday with quite some frequency, and that we don't have the rules to address it yet.
Yeah, going just to the point of back in October, in that shooter situation, talking with the inspector who was then on the phone with Vicky to help us walk through the process together was very helpful.
Yeah, I think these issues are just going to keep coming up because we get potentially more and more schedule changes.
What, in a sense of other states, what goes on in terms of having someone there while the property's open, or do they do a 9 to 5?
I couldn't say with any sort of consistency. I mean, I think Indiana, we're
I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you. We may have just lost quorum. Can you confirm whether we have either board member Bickmore or board member Hanslip? Oh, that's perhaps.
Yeah, I don't see that.
That's not great.
Let's take a 5-minute break and see if we can get them back, if that's okay.
Yep.
Otherwise we can't. It's just kidding. Yeah, they're both gone.
I mean, I know I'm a lawyer and boring, but I'm looking for something we all have to sign off.
All right, we're back. I don't know, we're in the middle of. Operating with something.
I think the question before we left
Yeah.
was, what
Dealing
is,
with scheduling.
what is scheduling in other states? So, in all of our class 3 states, they are 24/7 inspectors. The only one I think is Mississippi where they're regional, but they are 24/7. So
So what's a class 3 state?
so slot machines,
We're
you would be considered class 3. We also operate in, racing, jurisdictions where we operate HHR.
Thank
And so those are pari-mutuel wagering states, that are slightly different than class 3. Although you also offer pari-mutuel wagering to ADO, so it's complicated.
And there was a bill to try to legalize one of the class 2 historical horse racing.
So, okay, yeah, we're class 3 and everybody else is 24/7.
They are, and although some of them aren't on site, I think in Mississippi, they are 24/7, but they're in like a regional field office because the casinos are clustered in certain areas, so they'd be on staff to be able to respond, but they would be in the facility. But I believe Indiana, Pennsylvania, New York, are all 24/7 on premises. But that doesn't change the self-inclusion process may differ, in some of the states. So even where there's 24/7, we may still start with paperwork. And then we also, in certain jurisdictions, maintain, you can sign up for the state list, you can go to the agent, sign up for the state list, or you can go to our security office and sign up for our specific list. I think that's the Indiana process. You can just exclude yourself from our facility, but not go through the state process. But it gets complicated when you talk about what all other states do. And so effectively, that's what we're doing now, is they're coming to us and we're saying, we're gonna pay you from a facility, but we're not gonna register you for state.
What, that may not be able to be answered now, but what, authority do we have or wanted to make a decision about having inspectors?
I think it's
All
at
facilities open.
a minimum, a discussion of understanding the impact. Of not, I don't know what else isn't getting done when the inspectors aren't there, what other services aren't being provided. And I think it may not be for today, but I think it's important to recognize that.
There's some issues with the machine.
So there's a couple other things that I'm sure will come at some point, that have affected us with the new schedule. Beyond just slot machine moves. The first is temporary licenses. That has traditionally been a state inspector role, and we've begun taking that over at the same time period. And then probably the most impactful to HR especially is the ability to get new licenses. That used to be a process to start on Monday, so we get them in and working. That's now been pushed back a day. Again, we can manage it, but just some of the things that have transpired as a result of the schedule. And Matt, do you have any examples? Steve?
Yeah, like we normally do our machine moves on Sundays and Mondays, so now we keep the machines down until Tuesday. We get any deliveries, they have to be postponed or held on to until the inspector is there. I mean, that's not so bad for machine moves, but for parts, it could delay us another day. You'll have a machine down, so it's minor, yes.
So like there are two parts to it, right? That we have rules. We made a change that impacted those rules, right? Without sort of figuring out what the impact was, and perhaps made a change without really consulting with our partners. Partners.
Well. Yeah, I mean, you can still have inspectors there. I mean, changing the facility-based monitoring didn't require.
I did say it did. I just said the fact that we did a schedule change has impact on all of these other things, and it feels like
We didn't do it, maybe we can fix it.
maybe we.
Yeah, it's not facility-based
Discussion
monitoring
didn't happen.
system that has caused the concerns. They were kind of lumped together, because obviously one came with the other, but, that's not time. Yeah, just time.
So there's another issue that was raised, by Austin, the about temporary licenses, which, you know, somebody forgets theirs or lost theirs, whatever. What's going on now?
So very similar to the self-exclusion, in the absence of an inspector, and I believe it's Sunday, Mondays, our security team will now issue the licenses. Exact same process, just different place. The complicating factor is that the state office is on the gaming floor, and then we have a different office. So depending on the day of the week, we have to try to describe to the team where they need to go. And especially if there's a call out, that gets really confusing. So we're navigating it. We can make it work, but that's.
I don't, how are you issuing the state
They're not really issuing it, if I may, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Mushmore, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe you're doing this pursuant to your internal controls to provide temporary access badges to staff members. Is that correct?
This is not reflected in the rules or internal controls as far as I'm aware. This is a workaround process. Again, I haven't done deep diving, but this was a waiver essentially that were given to make this work up and until the time that rulemaking could be completed.
Could I ask one additional follow-up question? Do the applicants, have they already submitted their full applications for licensure to the state at the time that you issue a temporary license?
We're not issuing those temporary licenses. We're talking licensed team members who get their badges or lose their badges.
Okay,
Yeah, that's,
okay, all right,
There's a statute that says the hack your license visible at all times.
right.
got it.
This helps us get around that.
Yeah.
So I guess this gets back to my ultimate question, which is what authority, if any, do we have to try to permit? If we want inspectors there, whatever, so. Is that question? Yeah, no, you're just in the crosshairs. I mean,
So I think, we are hearing that there are some areas that the board may be concerned about that are not being adequately covered under the new schedule. I think you can clearly identify those to Director Champion and ask him to address those, respond to those, and come back to you to explain how those different aspects of your legal duties are being implemented. And if you would like to direct changes, when he answers those questions, you can begin to direct changes, and it will depend on what the changes are that you want. Potentially, we're talking about rulemaking. Potentially, we're talking about that. The change of schedule seems to be consistent with the existing law, and so you can identify that as well.
I think that's my two biggest issues, is I think there is consistent with rulemaking. And it feels like waivers are just happening. And I think that's a concern. And I don't think that at least the board is aware of the impact of the schedule change. I think it is incumbent upon Director Champion to.
I'm aware to piss people off.
Well, I'm not even going down that road. It's really just, we have a set of rules. We say we're going to do things. We say we're going to have inspectors. We've changed somewhat arbitrarily in my opinion. All due respect to the commissioner, that Sunday and Monday doesn't have certain things happening, but it doesn't take into account everything. And I just think that understanding better the impact and also how it conflicts with the rules.
And I would just ask of both of the casinos present, if you would be willing to submit in writing your sort of list of concerns. I think that would be a fruitful way to ensure that the discussion is complete and adequately addresses the things that you're experiencing. I think you had indicated wanting to hear more from the regulated community about what the issues are that you're experiencing.
Well, we've already heard 3 issues, right? Self-exclusion, we gotta deal with. Things to be a urgent matter. Temporary license, badges, licenses, machines, looking machines. I think the biggest one that triggers me is like, you want employees to start, right, on a Monday. And they can, but it's like, it's extremely complicated HR wise to delay that. So I feel for the HR folks. So that's to navigate that. And I'm biased because that's what I represent, but you know, it just makes sense, right? Like you're trying to plot out what people are working. So like, it's just this is open can of worms, change that. I don't understand, but you know, Bill, I don't know if you want to address any of this, but there certainly must have been a reason for shifting it.
Well, I mean, I don't know, like the Commissioner said, I don't know if it's the appropriate time to address it unless the AAGs give me the green light. I do have a lot of supportive data. I don't make my decisions based on just my experience. And so I do have a lot of documents to support this. And if you want just something to throw out there, state of Iowa has 21 casinos. Gaming reps work Monday through Friday, daytime schedule. Arizona has 23 casinos. Compliance staff work Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. 9 racinos, Florida, 1 supervisor and 2 inspectors, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Michigan, 3 casinos, 7 days a week, 6 a.m. to 3 a.m., 1 per shift. Delaware, 3 casinos, gaming inspector hours of operations.
No, I'm gonna
4
really interrupt you. We could read the same, you could read the same list going the opposite of people.
Well, I'm getting to 24/7, but what I'm saying is not everybody's 24/7, right?
And perhaps their rules reflect that.
Mississippi, no on-site for part-time coverage at all. They do annual audits. And I'm not dreaming this up. This is what I get from my colleagues in these other states.
Right, but I think
So-
the point is, I'm assuming those states have contemplated that and have dealt with it in rules such that we don't have 2 different casinos here saying, what do we do with all these things, right? So essentially, we made a change, didn't consider the impact. Now we're starting to deal with the impact. I'm sure there'll be more stuff that will come. So now we probably have to open up rulemaking to try to deal with this.
Well, I also have emails and I have other support documents, but I think we can make that, talk about all that next meeting, and I can send you in the Dropbox prior to, if that's not,
Well,
if that's okay.
we've got one urgent issue that has to be dealt with, right? It seems to be the most pressing. Everything else is sort of an inconvenience, but, which we'll deal with. But the most pressing are dealing with, the citizens of Maine who have a problem. They've identified that they have a problem and need some help. So we got to figure out what to do about that. It sounds like the temporary, like, is not a perfect thing. It sounds like temporary Band-Aid is changing form so that the casinos feel comfortable filling this void until we can open up rulemaking. Come up with a more formalized process and authority for doing this. And then, if I have to do it, I'll do it, but make noise with the BLA committee and CDC that, next session, gotta deal with this and increase funding. I mean, I'll tell you, it's probably the most frustrating committee to go in front of. They had no idea that we even gets tax revenue, right? Try explaining the difference between class 2 machine and a class 3 machine, let alone anything else. So, no member of the BLA committee has attended one of our meetings in the 4+ years I've been on this board. So that should tell you something. And you just sort of run into a brick wall up there, but I'm happy to take that on. It's, the money's there, just needs to be directed, but let's try to fix this problem now, then they're gonna have rulemaking.
Well, like, or revisit the scheduling.
Yeah, but that decision might be made, not by us. Like, from what I gather, right, it may be changed before we even get to it. So we'll see. But let's deal with self-exclusion right now. So on the form, I guess, what's the easiest check?
I think, I guess, the question that I had asked that I think was not objectionable,
to the casinos was about whether we could just change the section on page 3 of the form. That says, there's a header that says for completion by authorized official. So I think you could add there or appropriate for or casino employee. And then where it says signature, it says signature of authorized official. And either that should be changed to be signature of authorized official or casino employee, or it should just say signature. So I think those are the two places that the form could be changed, and I believe would address the concern.
That,
I think that's accurate in the short term. I still think that we would ask for a rule change at some point to clarify
Yeah.
that from a liability perspective.
we're gonna do rulemaking, but that's a whole process.
Yeah.
And I don't think that people can wait 69, whatever, however many days it takes, like it, you know, quite frankly, I thought I was gonna hear like, you know, we've had one. I mean, it's a much higher number than I would have thought.
That was my exact reaction when they told me the number. I thought we could skate along, and we'd have one or two in these off hours, but it's more than we expected.
Yeah, it's more than I thought, so clearly there's a need. You know, I think we'll have employees who are capable of doing this, and then let's figure out the rules. Have good representatives who submit language, and we can work with it, figure out what works best, so,
I think there would just be then the additional practical question to the unit staff about how quickly that can get rolled out.
we make those two changes to the form.
Immediately, yes.
All right,
Well,
well,
I would ask that we put a timeframe on this. This isn't,
well, the problem is with the rulemaking is we don't know how many comments and how many rounds.
yes, but I mean, I think it's a weird precedent to start of something that works around their own rules.
I'll just clarify, as a legal matter, I don't think this works around your rules. I think the rules permit this change. The rules permit the casinos to do this. They are simply silent about who at a casino can accept. And I think that the casinos are wanting to move, if I'm understanding correctly, out of the gray area where it doesn't say who can accept it and to more clearly state who can accept it. But as a legal matter, this is permissible to make the authorization to an appropriate casino employee in that's not inconsistent in any way.
But
with the
I
existing
still
rule.
ask that we note the motion as being temporary, even if it's not, doesn't have a timeframe on it. We recognize it's temporary, so we'll make clarification.
And then Jennifer, could you advise on what to do with the 4 or 5 that we have currently where it is sitting unsigned and now we won't have the opportunity to sign it in front of a patient, like,
So no, I cannot provide that advice now. I think essentially those are stuck where they're stuck based on the decision that was
So-
made at the time.
All right, we'll come back to that. Let's deal with the form first. So what do you, Ms. Green, what are you thinking?
I would make a motion that we accept the AG's recommendation of the modifications to the form on a temporary basis till addressed in July.
Yep, and with the addition that the unit should provide the updated forms, they can see those by Friday, that makes sense. Sooner if possible, but you think that's sufficient? time?
Within 15 minutes of me leaving.
Okay, fine.
We'll give you a little bit more time.
You second that.
You have to move for that?
I did.
Okay, Joe seconded, all right, let's take a roll call vote.
And you accept the amendment, I think.
I did.
All right, Ms. Green?
Aye.
Mr. Hanslip?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well, so temporary Band-Aid.
One quick question on the chapter 13 rulemaking. Do you want to have a public hearing or do you just want us to modify and put it out for written comment?
I would recommend that you have a public hearing on this one. I think that we should have a full discussion about it. The board should be able to hear from every member of the public who wants to comment on it, and take everybody's views under consideration. And I think you might also consider who is going to draft this. You want to have draft the first.
So we draft proposed rules and we put it out and have a public hearing.
Well, so the draft has to come to the board has to vote on the draft. And then you have a public hearing, once it's proposed.
At any point, is there an impact statement? But before we start writing everything out?
Bill should address the impact statement. He's the one responsible.
I guess before you start writing things, is there a process of impact statements so we understand the impact and what all of the different roles might be affected by any type of schedule change, whether it's Sunday, Monday, or we go to a 3-day week, whatever it is.
I don't think we've ever done anything like that.
How do we know? Right, what the big picture is of everything that needs to potentially be addressed. We don't give some type of impact statement or impact.
Typically, we put the proposed text out for publication for written comment or public hearing, and we go through that, but, as far as, and then there's the basic statement at the end. I've never done it before.
Yeah, no, I get I understand the process. I guess my question is, since these things are now cropping up, is there a way to take a step back, talk with the casinos, talk with AGs, whoever needs to be involved, say, let's look at all the potential pieces that may be impacted by a schedule change so that we're not doing rulemaking piecemeal. We're addressing all the things in the world that may have to be addressed.
I think that has to be in the public hearing.
Yeah, oh, that's what we have a hearing.
Yeah, I'll refer to the AAG.
I think-
I think they bring their rules first.
You could preliminarily go through and attempt to identify which rules are impacted by the schedule change. And I think the casinos have identified some of them here today, and that can be assessed in advance and then discussed as a part of the proposed rule or proposing a rule. And then there can be additional public comment. But yes, I think that you can do that step at the beginning
So,
as the basis of what gets proposed.
yeah, so, all right, so I see it, I did not get any administrative law. So, okay. So we have a couple pressing issues, obviously chapter 13, the self-exclusion. There's an issue with temporary licenses, badges, which is, I don't know what chapter that would fall under, 2 or 3, maybe? I just have it here.
I have it as chapter 5.
Chapter 5. Okay, yeah, it likes to be in internal controls. So chapter 5. Maybe there's something about the machines. But maybe not. But I think if we start, you, meaning the assistant agents, can start with those two. We can approve it to put it out, right?
We do not participate in drafting, and it's up to the agency to do the drafting. Yeah, the AG's office does not draft rules. We can advise as to form and legality, which is what we usually do. But it is up to the agency to draft the rules and to identify which rules need to be changed related to this schedule. We can certainly advise Milt as he makes that identification, but it will be.
So I think we need to see a draft, right, at the next meeting to then put out comment and schedule a public hearing.
I think we just heard that some type of impact assessment can be done first. I mean, because my concern is, right, we have these impacts. We made schedule changes, I guess, without ever taking those into consideration. And I think that there may not be any more, but there could easily be more. I'm not in a position to know if there's more or not. And I feel like those who are impacted would be. So however an impact assessment would work, it's straight, but consider that.
Milt, do you have any questions about that or issues that you want to raise about that?
No, I just need 6 more people.
Well, look, I mean, there's an opportunity to go through the rules to figure out. I mean, you could pretty much silence a lot of the issues by updating the rules to reflect the schedule change that you made. So I think that's an opportunity that you're at, So, I don't think it's a. You know, it's extra work, but I think it needs to be done.
Oh, I'm not saying I can't do it, but I had 6 or 8 more people. I started out with 2 casinos, now I have charitable fantasy sports wagering, legislative session coming up. Central gaming, Indian casinos, all this other stuff that I have to respond to and all. Tough being. Trying to do all that with
If I could
19 people and 9 of them in the office, or not even 9, 3 and 4 in the office.
Well, the change was made for a reason. So this is sort of an opportunity to clean it up.
Oh, yeah, no,
So-
I'll get to it. Yeah, I'll definitely get to it.
I just was going to suggest that it may in fact be useful if the casinos are willing to follow up with their comments from today with just bulleted points of areas of concern that you've identified and experienced and can provide that to Director Champion. That would be useful background information that is relevant to his decision-making on the rules and could be very helpful to do this assessment. Please.
He does have a list from April 30th.
Okay.
Correspondence.
Okay. So you've already, Oxford has already provided.
We had a question. We can clean that up with rule edits, like proposed rule. Like we identified the issues, I think, in that we can propose new language to
Was this submitted before the schedule change?
It was after notification.
After notification, but before?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, Austin, do you have something?
No, I think it's been answered. We're happy to submit the comments. I'd love even more if we were able to collaborate and review a draft prior to submitting to the board. We often see the rules for the first time after they've been submitted to you. And I think if we were to have that pre-meeting and discuss some of these things, I think 99% of these comments that end up being in the hearing could be prevented. I don't know if it's possible or not, but
I think that's you and the unit.
Well,
as stakeholders, I was hoping we could have.
so there is a separate stakeholder process that could be used, and we can certainly consider whether that's appropriate under these circumstances. In addition, it is not usual necessarily for an agency to co-draft. If you have suggested language that you would like to submit, that could be sent in with your comments about the rulemaking that's needed.
Okay, yeah, that's great. I mean, whatever's helpful for you guys.
I think that's the easiest way to do it.
Okay.
And then that-
You also know what rules and what things are needed. Yeah, so submit that. Then the unit will have to come up with a draft. Have a hearing, you'll have an opportunity to talk to us. You don't have to, sit behind your sole written comments, have a conversation about it. The public may have thoughts about it too. They'll have an opportunity, so. It's gonna be a process, but. That's how we have to do it.
I guess I would also like, and maybe the schedule change is appropriate, not just saying it is or it isn't. But I still think it's important that the board understands why the schedule change was made. Not because 12 states do it and 12 states don't, but what was the decision-making inside the unit, the determination to do that? Was it financial? Was we couldn't find inspectors? Was it inspectors were just sitting around doing nothing? The decision was made for a reason that started this whole ball rolling. And I think I would like the Director Champion at our next meeting explain to us the reasoning behind the decision. I'm not looking at a second guess decision. I just want to understand this.
Yeah, and I guess that will be Bill and HR and whatever to deal with it, but what can be discussed and what they're in a grievance process. I don't know the answer to that, but. Okay. All right, we solved one. Second was about the folks who came in self-excluded, but they're not, wasn't completed.
Well, they're not. So what I heard Matt say is we banned them in absence of being able to complete the process. But that would mean they would still be open to gaming elsewhere in Maine. So we've not had the optimal experience where we're banning them in that state. Would it be a privacy issue if Lori then reached out to them
Or
and then see if they want to go on the full list?
Did they check off the box? So first of all, if it's okay for me to comment, I think that by the end of the week, I will have self-excluded 2 or 3 of them. I am in communication with several of them because they did reach out to me, which is great. I did one late yesterday. But if they checked off the box, I think that you could give me their contact
The
info.
last 2 did not check out the box, but we have their contact.
So I think the alternative, which we did in the past, that unit sent letters to them with all the information about how to complete the process, sort of statewide. I think that's probably the best way forward to avoid any questions.
Upon request from the unit, we would share the name.
Yeah, and we did that when we were transitioning Hollywood's list. You know, and that name was old, so a bunch bounced back, but these are recent. So I think that's what we should do. It could be almost the same letter. You know, I think we sent it a year ago or whatever it was, but so if we do that, Bill.
That's helpful. Thanks.
Can we audit first, as Lori has done, so
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
not.
You can, yeah.
We'll
I would
coordinate.
say wait till the end of this week. There are several in.
Well, I'll get with Cam, you'll send you the ones that we have on standby mode, if you will. And then if you finish them, then we'll take them off the list. The other 2 will reach out with a separate letter.
Yeah, I know there's other issues. We're gonna, well, these seem to be the most, urgent. So I think the rulemaking will help alleviate some of the other stuff that's going on. Am I missing anything? Okay. Cool. All right. All right, so moving on, we have a number of comments to review about the facility-based monitoring system. Pull these up. All right, so Bill, what are you looking for from us? To approve the basis statement?
Yeah, I forwarded the comments and you would have to approve the changes, but more importantly, the basis statement, because there's some additional changes in the document. The document that went out was the second publication, of which Oxford Casino only made 2 comments, and there was no comments from Hollywood, so it was relatively easy. I mean, if you want, and I know you've had this in the Dropbox for a little while to take a look at it. Obviously, I don't think you want to waste a lot of time going through the ones that we accepted or recommend the board accepts.
Now,
Yeah.
what were the, I know,
Go ahead.
what were the 2 new comments or exceptions of work? Or Oxford has almost 3D1. But the chapter 3?
Chapter 3, page 29.
Right, hold on.
We run the basis.
Pretty sure. I think it's 7.5.
Yeah, page 29. My documents, page 29 and page 40. There were the only 2 additions from the first publication they submitted. One was for the need clarification if this includes machine drops by members of the drop team. And the other one was changed to access must be conducted by a licensed employee or vendor.
Well, I'm trying to find about pages. What was your recommended response?
So in the one on page 40, change to access must be conducted by a licensed employee or vendor. Board accepts the part comment will change to say notification by email to the director. For remote access begins the notification to the director of remote access is completed under paragraph 5.
What was 29? Page 29.
29 was. Oxford needs clarification if this includes sheet drops by members of the drop team. Board accepts the comment, will amend the text to read logged in a machine entry authorization available or board approved device except during slot machine drop by the county. That was accepted.
All right. And I know we went through this before. Any questions or comments from the board? Okay.
I think the board does need to do one analysis step before we can go on to adoption, and that's determining whether the changes to the rules that we have now before you are substantially different than what was proposed. And I can sort of walk you through that analysis and the questions that you could consider to perform that analysis. But if the board does consider that the rules as now amended are substantially different than what was proposed, they should be republished. It's a statutory
You mean the
matter under the
two-
APA.
I mean, the two most recent changes.
No, I mean all the changes. The board has not considered or adopted the rules as changed yet. So.
All right.
So the substantially different analysis, do any of the changes enlarge the scope of the rule? Meaning, do the rules change who or what are covered or alter the threshold that defines what conduct is covered by the rule? Next step, or next question, does the change benefit those affected by the rule, or might it affect them adversely? Would a member of the public or regulated entities who did not comment on the original proposed rule have likely commented on this version of the rules if given notice? Is someone who would not have been affected by the original proposed rule going to be affected if this change or if these changes are adopted? And last, would someone who commented on the rule be surprised by any of the proposed changes because nothing about the original draft would have signaled that the agency might go in this direction? And I think sort of as a backstop, generally speaking, our office advises republication where numerous changes are made just to ensure ample and complete opportunity for public participation. And so that sort of is the norm that we would recommend where there are changes to rules.
Okay. Didn't we already make the change? I mean, not
I
to the
don't-
rule,
you-
but I thought the whole point was that this was an emergency that needed to be switching the monitoring had to be done now.
So Milt can certainly speak to whether he has a different view, but I don't know that the transition has been accomplished. the director champion indicated that there's sort of an enforcement grace period because there are things that need to catch up and practices that need to catch up. The rules themselves were not an emergency process. We were trying to do them on a quick schedule, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't follow the APA process and make sure that the rules are validly adopted. And I don't think that there is anything particularly time sensitive about the contents of these rule changes that means they have to get adopted. And again, it's director champion. A different view about some particular time sensitive adoption here.
Do you have an opinion one way or the other?
Well, my opinion is we've already published this twice. First time was for a typo error and, we put them out there. The second time Hollywood didn't respond. The other two, didn't comment outside of the two casinos. Oxford was the only one that commented, and they only had 2 additional comments to what they had previously submitted. So I kind of think, I mean, it's up to you. I'll do it for the publication, but I don't know if it's necessary at this point.
Austin?
But just as a point of clarification, we did respond. We resubmitted the original comments, but we very much submitted comments.
Well, the second time you said there's no comments other than from the original.
Yeah, but those had never been reviewed before.
That's correct. This is our first review of any comments, board's first review of any comments, or any amendments to these proposed rules.
If you want to do them, I'll do both.
Is there a harm that we're going to create and republish it such that there's more of a unknown? Like I want to keep wanting to avoid situations where we make changes without contemplating the effect, and then we're back. Oh, hey, this is how it works practically. I mean, here the legislature directed, this to take place by a certain date. I don't think fully contemplated the scope of rulemaking. So,
Well, the legislature did not direct that rulemaking had to occur by the state. And in fact, there is some legal risk associated with doing this before the effective date of the legislation. So I think there is, unless there is a time-sensitive issue identified clearly in the rule, the preferred practice would be to republish because there are numerous changes from the proposed rule to the current rule. However, the board's legal obligation is to determine whether if you do not want to follow that general good practice, this is the preferred practice in APA rulemaking processes advice, then we need to jump to the substantially different analysis, and the board needs to make a determination about whether the rules as amended are substantially different from what was proposed.
I think they are. All right, so I think we need if that is shared by other members of the board, I think that answers the question, period, and that it's no longer optional. That it's not a consideration. It's simply they are substantially different and must be republished on the APA. Yeah.
I mean, I can't make a contrary case to that, but.
All right, well, that's what we gotta do. So we need to vote to republish the record.
I think that would be the question.
Is it a general republish or pick a date?
But I think the director would like it done as soon as possible, and so I think it'd be directed to
That's fine.
republish as soon as possible. And I think then you should just go through and indicate what changes, or if you are accepting sort of all the changes that have been proposed in the texts.
Well, I mean,
Publication.
I think it would be what we have now in terms of some were accepted, some were rejected, we're to publish and then get comments on it.
Okay. Yep, and I think that just needs to be the motion. The
Yeah,
motion
so
just
it
needs to be
would-
clear about what's.
Does that make sense, Phil?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's essentially taking what set out in Space's statement for your next round. So obviously, we're accepted and changes made, other, but we'll put it out there. But I think just keep in mind for the folks that are gonna comment. Like to not do it again, but maybe we have to, right? I mean, so make it, you know, specific and important, not every little thing. But you're free to do whatever you want. Okay, so the motion,
One just other issue to raise for the board's consideration. The board was also circulated the proposed chapter 19. And then upon legal review, so we, like I said, the AG's office does not get involved in drafting, but we will do a legal pre-review to identify if there are any issues for form or legality. But current text, and I did do that review on chapter 19 and did propose some changes for the board's consideration to chapter 19 if the board would like to republish those.
yes. Yeah, I
Okay,
think-
so that should just be included in the motion as amended.
Okay, do you want to recap what the motion is at this point?
So as I understand it, the motion is to republish the material, the rule texts that have been amended and provided to the board today as altered in response to comments identified in the basis statement. And then to also publish the recommended amendments to chapter 19 for form and legality that were proposed by me. I will make that motion, but I'm not repeating.
So moved, I'll second it. Any other questions, comments, report? All right, let's take a roll call vote. Ms. Green.
Aye.
Mr. Hanslip.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. So. All right, so get that out since we can. Lastly, we have approval of qualified independent laboratories. And we have a few folks here with presentation. I don't know, Bill, if you have any intros to make.
No, just that, I think effective August 9th with the small slot distributor bill, there was a change in the law for the board to have approved independent laboratories. So I've asked for the two laboratories who have been approving or certifying equipment and associated equipment up to this point to come to the board today, make a short presentation, and then hopefully you'd be able to either vote on it today or vote or approve them as approved laboratories effective the date of the law becomes effective, I guess. And that would be an AAG law, I guess, as well.
So, well, first one in here is PMM. Someone here.
They're supposed to be online. Derek Smith, yes.
Hello, everyone.
There it is.
First of all, thank you very much for allowing
Hold
us
on,
to
Derek.
join you today.
Video, you have video?
I do.
Yeah, then you'll pop up on our screen.
It is saying I cannot start my video. The host has stopped it.
Should be all set.
All right, try it now. There you go.
Hello, everyone.
You are like a floating head in the back of our.
Well, I'm pretty sure that if I changed it, you'd see a shelf full of papers that far less interesting.
You're set. Yeah. So we have your slides. I don't know if you have the opportunity to do it up
Yeah.
on there.
So before jumping in, I'd just thank you very much for allowing BMM to join you today. Executive Director Champion, thank you for putting us forward as one of the lab options for this.
Okay. we can see your slides now, so.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm not sure if you've had the opportunity to review these slides ahead of this meeting. If there is a desire to go through everything, I am more than happy to do so. But in the interest of time, I certainly will move through them quickly and answer any questions at the end if you have them. So just a general overview with regard to BMM. BMM has been an operating independent test lab globally since 1981. We support over 700 regulators across jurisdictions around the world. We have 16 office locations. We are an ISO accredited lab, ISO 17020, 025, and 065. Each of our facilities where we perform testing for any of the jurisdictions that we operate in the United States or Canada are accredited for those ISO standards. As we've got up on screen here, we do have our mission, which is to strengthen the gambling industry to protect all who gamble. Give me one moment here.
You have to change the slide.
Yeah, when you help me too.
Oh, go ahead, because he's trying to change it.
Yeah. Valerie can change it.
Mallory can change it for you, Derek. Just tell her, just ask her to change slide.
Perfect, thank you. So I apologize, my my audio had to change. So yes, our mission, vision, and values are posted throughout every single lab location. They're up there for everyone to see. We point them out when we bring folks through the labs for tours. We stick to these core tenets at all times, and we refresh them regularly with our staff to make sure that everyone is aware of the purpose and vision that we have for BMM Test Labs as a global entity. Next slide, please. So we do provide services for suppliers, operators, and regulators. At a high level for suppliers, we do test and qualify their various products for the different gaming types, of which you have several in your state. For operators, we do on-site inspections. We support their internal audits of devices on the floor. We provide training to the operators and other individuals within those organizations. For regulators, we did recently come out and perform training for your inspectors leading up to the changeover to help you in understanding our signature verification tool. We also provide forensic evaluations and have done so for several regulators over the last couple of years. We also provide training for various levels of agencies and staff, depending on the needs of the organization. Next slide, please. So this kind of speaks to how our business operates. We have the 3 gaming models, which are land-based gaming and inspections, digital gaming and inspections, and government and regulatory support. We also have the Big Cyber Division, which is a separate entity under BMM Innovation Group, and the RG 24/7 Virtual Training, which is another division under the BMM Innovation Group. All of these resources are available to you as a regulatory agency at any point in time as needed. Next slide, please. On the education front, we have a library of approximately 40 different training sessions. We are working with RG 24/7 to make video digital options for all of our training so that this education is available through the RG 24/7 solution. We have recently supported 2 other US states in regulation reform, helping them to draft updates according to their objectives as they stated to us. We do this on a relatively regular basis. We will review and have reviewed your FBMS draft. Generally speaking, we look at it from an independent testing lab perspective. We leave it to the manufacturers and operators to speak to their needs. So we don't often contribute much during the process of review, but we will upfront, if requested so by a regulator, help in drafting that initially. As I mentioned, we do field inspections. We just recently sent out a set of engineers to New Mexico to help do an on-site inspection and audit 400 machines in a casino down there. And then, of course, our forensic evaluations. Forensic evaluations can be done for the state or for the operator. If there's a malfunction on a machine, it needs to be investigated. We have a specific process that we follow that ensures all of the evidence is captured properly and handled according to the requirements for the inspection. Next slide, please. Just a few notes regarding BMM and the state of Maine. BMM has been working and providing its services for the state of Maine since January 2016. We do test for all manufacturers and all of their products. As you see in the testing services and regulatory services listed here, we have been doing this since day one and will continue to do it as long as you will allow us to serve you. We did recently provide support in the form of on-site training ahead of the changeover, in addition to fully staffed online available resources for the first 24 hours of your changeover for the inspection team, and continued 24/7 support through email and phone calls for the remainder of the changeover. That 24/7 support, of course, is available at all times from BMM. Next slide. As I mentioned, we have 16 locations globally. The United States in Las Vegas is our global headquarters. We do a large portion of our testing out of the Moncton, New Brunswick location in Canada. We recently got accreditation under ISO 17025 for our Slovenia and India locations. We have an expanded testing model that we use those locations for and are beginning to increase the frequency there. We also recently opened an office in Brazil. Next slide. The board of directors and advisors, so Martin Storm, Frank Frankoff, and Travis Folia are our board of directors. Peter Hayter and Robert Crowley are our advisors to the board. Martin Storm, Peter, and Robert are based out of Australia. Frank and Travis are here in the States. Next slide. The executive leadership team includes Martin and Travis, as it does Peter Hayter as our chief legal counsel. Marcia Tarini handles our digital arm. Kirk White handles our land-based arm. Kara Matthews is responsible for all of our operations and development. Laura Olson Reyes has taken over marketing, and Brian Witherspoon is our chief revenue officer. He works with our business development group. Next slide. As I mentioned at the front, we started our business in 1981. We have had a number of milestones over the last 42 years, 43 years now. We were one of the first entities to publish a technical standard, and it was adopted by Victoria in Australia. Martin Storm did acquire the company after serving as CEO from 2002, purchased the company in 2005. He is the sole owner of BMM Test Labs. We moved our global headquarters to Las Vegas in 2012. We've had a number of recognitions over the 43 years that we've been in business. Most recently, BMM was accredited by Brazil and recognized by the Cherokee North Carolina tribe. We're working with the Catawba tribe in North Carolina as well to make sure that their needs and the state's needs are met for all of the services that BMM provides. Next slide. Ooh. So the recent highlights. We did receive our approval by Brazil Secretary to test and certify betting systems, live gaming systems. We are accredited to test and certify PCI DSS. Payment cards are, the payment card industry in general are a more consistent factor in gaming in a number of the jurisdictions where our clients operate. And we have found that there's a great deal of value in having that knowledge base to support and supplement the testing that we do of these devices.
It is frequently underrated. You have enough cliches to get you through the visit. With a family estate, you'll be
Joe.
Joe.
Jeff.
Hey, hold on.
That was interesting.
Lost their mute Joe.
I don't try to find it.
Chasm is
There you
the. I see a.
Okay.
All right. We good?
There we go. Yes.
Wonderful. So 16 labs, 600 plus employees. This speaks for itself. You don't need me to go through this. We've been doing this a very long time, and we hope to continue our services for Maine for as long as you will allow us to provide them. We have a few more slides here, which I'm more than happy to go through to talk through our charitable contributions, our ACES internship program, several other of the things that BMM does to expand and support the gaming industry globally. If you'd like me to go through them, I'd be more than happy to do so.
We're all set. Derek, I do have a question, I guess. I don't know.
Wonderful.
So what do you look, we need to vote for? No, what do you need from us?
Yeah, I'd like to, if you could, vote to approve them as a certified laboratory for the state of Maine. And if it can't be done until it becomes law August 9th, then you would be voting on it today to approve it effective August 9th or August 10th, whichever the Assistant Attorney General's feel would be appropriate.
So does this fall outside of a normal, like, given application process that requires lots of components? And I realize these aren't a direct vendor necessarily, right? They're just in this case, they're just certified, right? But it sounded like they did provide also some services to us directly, or to you directly, in terms of training. So
Well,
are they a direct
yes.
vendor?
Yes, GLI was under contract for the transition. They led the transition, and they're going to be submitting a final report to the board on their findings. But yeah, that was done through a contract.
So are they in effect a vendor and should go through the vendor review process?
No, this is a little bit different. They're approved with certifications, so specifically in the statute, they're not considered a guest service vendor. Prior to the statute change, they did have contracts, but they had no value. So it was a lot of time spent on technicality or legality that, with this change, we don't have to go through contract process, I guess. Go ahead, Jen.
Yeah, so if I could just give a little bit of background, in the emergency enactment that transitioned from central site monitoring to facility-based monitoring, there was a change to the board's statute section 1020 to provide that the board shall now approve qualified independent laboratories who will perform the certification of slot machines. And that's what you were at. That's what these folks are here today, to be approved as an independent laboratory by the board who is permitted to perform these certifications under this new legislative enactment. And this is not an August 9th effective date. This was an effective immediately enactment because it was part of the emergency enactment. So it became effective when signed by the governor. So the board does not have a process for this approval, and so I think this, you're proposing this process as their approval process. That they have presented themselves and their credentials to be a board-approved certified independent lab who will certify slot machines as compliant with Maine's laws.
Yes.
And this is not a one-off, right? There could be multiple companies who do this, or we're like awarding a monopoly here.
As far as I've been in the industry, there's been GLI, VMM, and Nick Farley, and I don't think Nick Farley's even operating anymore. I don't think he's around as he did.
But there appear to be two who are seeking approval today, is that correct?
No. Yes, that's correct.
So BMM and GLI are seeking approval.
So what would be the process in theory? Some new company started, wanted to be approved, if they, how would they do that?
Then they would make a presentation to the board.
We don't know anything about, we don't have any of the information to get a license application.
Right.
Seems to be a problem. I
Yeah,
mean, I know the companies, but just in theory, there could be a startup that wants to do this or something.
So the casinos, are you using both the, they certify the machines that are coming to you, right? We're not dealing with them ever directly. So are you working with both of them or just?
Technically, they work for you guys. Yeah. They don't work for us.
Right, but we don't make this, when you buy a machine.
Right.
Right, it has been certified by one of these two.
Right.
That be correct?
Yes.
And do you have, are they both certified? I know they're not both certified the same machine, but are they both in your space right now? Are they both certified machines that you have in your casinos? So they're currently active doing that right now, have been historically doing that. The only change is now we have to give our approval to this group.
And no, please correct me if I'm wrong. It used to be that these entities directly contracted with the state to perform these services. And so that is what is coming to an end on June 30th. And this is part of that contract. So this is a shift from a contract with the state to the board approving these independent labs to do the certification. The certification process used to be accomplished by these same entities in the form of a contract with the state that would do the action. So we're essentially, the law has shifted from there being a contract with the state to the board now approving the labs to perform the certification. They have been performing the certifications consistently through the history, and I don't know how long that's been, but.
So Mel, can you bring me up to speed? Explain to me why this move is made from a contract base just to an approval base?
Because I would need 5 board people to process the contract. It's very lengthy, and like I said, there's no money transfer at all. It's just paper that says you will do this, and you accept to do it, and you're going to get paid by the manufacturers and so forth to do this. Because the manufacturers pay for the certification, so they can have the machines come to the state of Maine. So it's just eliminating that whole another process, I guess, of having to develop a contract and get all the signatures, that sort of thing. Just seemed to be a lot easier for to be able to approve certified labs that have been doing this for ever and ever.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like we're going to get 5 applications next week. It's just not going to happen. There's not a whole bunch of people out there that do it. These two seem to have a fair share of the market, so I don't see us getting.
Do we need a process for that to happen?
Not that I know, statute just says you need to prove it. I don't know if we need anything more.
Doesn't direct rulemaking, but you could suggest an application for some sort of memorialization of the request for certain.
I mean, I don't have a concern about either particular companies. It's just, again, in these outliers, it's very odd to me that we have this formal application process for every other entity that in any way seems to touch the casinos. And then we have this process, which these companies which are very significant, that we're just doing it off a PowerPoint presentation.
And the statutory change does specifically say the board may adopt rules to establish the approval process to verify certifications. That it's contemplated and permitted by statute to create an approval process.
Well, so we have, so there's a contract expiring, so they need to be approved now.
Contracts expired 2015. Again, I don't have a lot of staff. I don't have a lot of time to, to develop these, and I've been in constant communication with both DMM and GLI. They've been asking me to update the contracts. It's not enough time in a day. So that's why I got with the AGs, and in that post bill, we made that change so that approve them as certified labs rather than require contractual non-value development of paper by the description. So.
We'll just clarify that the AG's office has no policy position on legislation, and to the extent that we had any involvement, it was simply to provide advice about accomplishing the policy goals that the director set out.
Where in the statute section?
10:20. So
Can I take the chair? I don't think the website has been updated. Yeah, that's not till August.
I can pass you my laptop so you can look at the text. Like the LD that we're talking about. Chair Silver, would you permit me to correct myself while you were looking at that with the comment directed for casinos and what they can submit related to the APA process? So I'll just correct myself. I don't think you should probably submit actual rule text, but if you would identify what you think the rule provisions, what concerns the rule provisions should address, and then you can submit language in the usual APA process. I think that's more consistent overall with the APA process if we don't do consensus-based rulemaking. So that, I think that would be more correct. Thank you for letting me course correct it.
Sure. I'll forgive you this time. I'll forgive you the next.
Very good.
Yeah, I mean, reading this, I mean, I think we need to probably adopt rules about how to want the approval process. Doesn't have to be today, but so this is directing slot machine distributor, their gambling service vendor to pay any independent laboratory to be approved of their equipment. So, you know, we're sort of setting the market.
That doesn't change the existing process. My understanding is that while there is a statutory change, my understanding is that that was the practice before. And Mel, you can speak better to that.
Yes, that's true.
They were paying.
Any entity could just come and get a contract with the state. I mean, how do they?
If I may,
A manufacturer reaches out to a certified lab, says, hey, I got this machine, I want to certify, I'm gonna sell 20 of them to Hollywood Casino. I need you to certify them for Maine. And they send the machine or whatever devices to their labs. They go through it, they certify it, they send us that these machines are certified for Maine, and then we allow the shipments. And
Right,
so
but under this change, if we don't approve anybody, then nobody's inspected. If there is, you have to, we have to approve it. The gambling services vendor and the slot machine distributors only use an approved laboratory, right? That now we approve. So no issues with these two companies, but my issue is the markets change, companies change. At some point, someone might want to do business in Maine. Right? So there should be a process, not just, hey, no, we want to get approved, and that's it. I have no idea any of these entities. Disciplinary actions, open litigation, be bankrupt for all I know, I know they're not, but we don't have that information.
And it's an outlier for everything else, the way we approve everybody else. Would agree with that.
Yeah, so, I don't know what other board members feel, whether we approve them today or we start rulemaking, which would basically be adopting an application process, pretty similar to what we do for every other entity. Shouldn't be much effort. I mean, the form, the materials that they would submit, identical, I would think.
I think it's better just not exempting them from that process. Because that's in fact what we're being asked to do, is exempt them from that normal application process, and I would not be in favor of exempting them.
Well, and it sounds like if we approve it, that they're just approved forever.
I would delay approving them.
Which
because I don't
makes
want
no
to exempt them.
Right, but I mean, the other problem with not having rules is that you just say they're approved under the statute. There's no end point.
I agree. I am agreeing.
Yeah. And we're all not gonna be here forever, right? So the other boards, they have different feelings. Want to see it on a renewal basis. Maybe they become longer periods than the other entities, They're not annual, but 35 years, I don't know.
I think if the board wanted to make a motion to temporarily approve this until rules are created that create the approval process, and then ask them to resubmit through the approval process once it's adopted by rule, the board could take that approach. I think there is, now that this is the law, there is some risk that if the board does not approve these laboratories, that there could be no certification of slot machines and other associated equipment in Maine, and I think that presents a real risk probably for the regulated community. So given this is the state of the law at the time, I think the board could conceivably, again, in parallel, sort of do a temporary approval that's time limited and then initiate rulemaking.
Yeah, just thinking ahead.
And then the other thing to consider too, are we talking about licensing them now, or are you just talking about a process of approval?
Just a process of the approval, because this says, well, no, it's not. Yeah, it's not a license, but the board is supposed to approve them, so.
I was just asking for clarity, that's all.
So the contract expired in 2015. That's what you said, right?
I threw a date out there.
Somewhere,
It was-
sorry, so it's 2015.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
So
Yeah.
what's happened in the meantime?
Pardon?
What's happened in the meantime? So there was no contract and there was no approval. How would you kind of define the limbo?
I can't speak to that. I don't know how the director.
They've been continuing to operating as
Under whose authority?
they were doing it under contract. I mean, there's no monetary value. They were directed
I understand
to.
it's no monetary value, but contract expired, they continue to do it. Is it under your authority and it should be under the board's authority? I'm asking for clarity of what happened in that limbo time since the contract expired.
I've never got around to doing the contract, to be honest with you. I mean, if I had the 200 staff that Massachusetts Gaming Commission has, but it didn't, they were.
Or maybe one of
already
these milk
informed.
at a future meeting, maybe you could come back with a whole list of things that can't get done because you don't feel
Oh,
you have the
yeah.
appropriate, hold on, you don't have the appropriate staffing, and then we can go to VLA with that. That we could be proactive on all the things that you feel can't be done, get ignored, whatever. We've discovered a lot of them today because there isn't appropriate staffing in the department. But I don't personally want to just keep using that reasoning of we don't have the staff to allow these things to happen. So I think it's important that we know all those things for to the best of that you can, so that we could advocate for the appropriate funding and staffing as necessary.
Yeah. Tens of millions of dollars that are being collected in taxes, so the legislature needs to know that there's problems to fund.
Well, I mean, I'll have to find out what that process is. I don't think the BLA is part of that. I think we.
Well, they can change
Process.
the BLA. They talk about it in this section. They want to go back and look at the cascades for everything, which I wholeheartedly support. We're subsidizing industries that,
Well, that's because it's in statute. There's nothing in statute.
but they can
that
change
says
that.
I get 9 inspectors, I get 3 directors,
They said you get a budget. I mean, if I were to accept what you're saying, there's nothing we can do.
Oh, no.
And every
no,
year you just get.
I can
what you
do
get.
it. I just don't, I mean, you can go to BLA. I'm just saying, I don't know. if
Well, then
BLA
there's a
is-
problem, because either the problem is you don't have enough staff, so we're volunteering to go advocate to get you the money to get more staff, or you don't want it.
No, I think we already have the money. I just have to have it allocated to get the people.
What the fuck are we talking about?
General fund.
Okay, I mean, at least 6 times today you said, well, I don't have the staff. I'm saying, let's go get it. But, so
Right.
what's the problem here?
Nothing is.
I don't want to hear more excuses. The mess has been created. We're trying to deal with it. So I'm saying I'll go volunteer my time to go to the legislature and pound on the table and say, we need extra dollars to hire these people. And now you're saying, well, no, that's not what I need. So, like, I've really reached the edge of this today. And Sarah was being nice, but it's either one or the other. And so it sounds like you need more staff. Get me a list of what the staff is, what it costs, and I'll go pound the table and make noise into the governor's office and say, we need X amount of money. Sports wagering is bringing in a ton of money. AEW, for its faults, brings in over 6 figures. And the casino, maybe they don't need to subsidize dying industries. Went out a decade ago. We can hire some people. Like, Maine doesn't have to be just this backwater jurisdiction for regulated gaming. That's insane. And so, I'm sick of the excuses, and we're volunteering to help. So somehow figure out what the problem is, and let's go solve it. Just wasted 3 hours today bitching and moaning about this. Pisses me off. So, deal with this. I think it's temporary approval makes sense before we get the rules made. Because I'm not gonna, the board is tasked with approving these entities. We didn't know. We should have the same information we have when we say someone can sell a playing card in the state to test the machine. That seems to make sense. So I don't know, that's what I would do. Maybe it's I don't know how long we'll make things. Maybe it's a year approval. That'd be okay.
I think you could also revisit it. You could do like a 6-month approval, and revisit it if needed, if it's not completed by that time.
I would motion that. Do a temporary 6-month approval, that we, this process subject to rulemaking and having an actual application process. Work for you?
Yeah. Now, GLI folks are here. Cut you off, but do you want to make your presentation? Because we're gonna.
I'll be very quick.
We like it anyway.
I'll do the expedited version. I know. My stomach's growling, so I'm sure everyone else. So.
Did you vote?
Oh, you need a vote, right?
Do you want to wait till
For
it
what?
was?
Yeah, we'll wait till after.
Everyone.
And just a second, just wait to get back to
The what?
I don't think we need to see the
Oh.
slides
No,
necessarily,
okay.
if you want to just show us the.
Okay.
You guys all,
We
you
can see the slide. Yeah.
guys all have it included in
Yeah.
your, okay.
I can see it. If there's something you want to
No, okay.
direct our attention.
Then I'll just jump right in. I'll identify myself, Gabe Benedict, for the record.
GLI Gaming Laboratories International. So what makes us international? We have 29 global locations. Our global headquarters is in New Jersey. Just a rundown, you guys are already seen this, it's included probably in your packets. We have 35 years experience. We're, like I mentioned, 29 global jurisdictions, 710 worldwide that we test and do certification for. We've got over 1,600 employees. We're on 6 continents. We offer 24/7 service to regulators, to the industry. Just a little brief again about GLI. We were formed in 1989 in New Jersey. We're the first private independent gaming testing company in the U.S. And our expertise includes knowledge and experience in capitalizing on emerging trends in the gaming industry, including technology advances in gaming, lottery, iLottery, which is online lotteries, iGaming, which is also online gaming, sports betting system, esports, fantasy sports regulations, new payment technology compliance. The list can go on and on. I'll stop there. We've reached a milestone as well. We've now tested and certified over 5 million gaming and lottery machine devices and systems since our existence. We were the first independent testing laboratory of its kind to retain U.S. and international accreditations. Those accreditations are ISO and IEC. ISO is the International Organization for Standardization, and IEC is International Electrotechnical Commission. And we have the accreditations listed on the packet that you guys have received, or at least the slides. We stick to a strict adherence for ethical standards and commitment to quality, the only part that makes us so unique. We've earned the trust and confidence of clients throughout the world. GLI is a household name in the gaming industry. GLI is committed to maintaining our independence and impartiality from the lottery and gaming industries. The GLI may not be retained, I'll repeat this again, GLI may not be retained by any gaming, lottery, equipment supplier, distributor, designer, or any other entity to engage in consulting work regarding slot machine design, manufacture, or any other related to regulatory compliance or interoperability requirements. As I mentioned before, too, we've got over 1,600 skilled professionals with a wide variety of background. We've got subject matter experts in every aspect of the gaming industry: IT, security personnel, quality assurance, test engineers, mathematicians, business service professionals, lawyers, our attorneys, again, through all 29 offices globally, through the 6 continents. Just a little history with the Maine Gaming Control Board. We've been with Maine Gaming since the start of gaming here in the state. We've produced over 13,000 certifications for the state of Maine. GLI has rejected for non-compliance over 17% of all those submissions, just totaling over a little over 24,000, caught within the laboratory setting before certifications were issued for the state of Maine. And again, I'll repeat the importance of that. GLI has rejected for non-compliance over 17% of all submissions for the state of Maine. It's 24,000 since our inception of working with Maine. Otherwise, without our certification, these machines can easily get into the casinos, and anything's possible. So within the past year, GLI has issued for the state of Maine 229 certification reports with 98% accuracy. So out of that, only 2 revocations demonstrating a little over 99% quality testing rate. Our inspection team has supported the unit with on-site progressive audit and training. Our inspection team has also performed communication testing for the main system conversion to assist with the unit. And then obviously the most recent with our help with the project, with the conversion for the casinos, we've done software audit as well. And that was this past month, actually finalizing this week. I think we're gonna do some training as well, some additional training. Some other keynotes, GLI's standard series was adopted by the Maine Gaming Control Board. We wrote the technical standards for the industry to adhere to. All those standards are available online. They're published there for the industry and for the world, and for that fact, to consider for adopting when new systems, new jurisdictions come online. They can use that as resources when developing rules regarding the technical standards. And we continue to update those and modernize them, obviously with innovation and change in this industry. That's happening much more faster this day and age than there was, 20 years ago. We've got field inspection teams that we deploy from New Jersey, so it's very close to get up here to help assist on call with any forensic related issues that may go on in any of the properties under the guidance of the unit. We've got subject matter experts, tons of them, that will help with the unit to advise on anything industry related. We will continue to support quality testing of slot machines and associated relating equipment in accordance to Maine's regulations. And then on this slide that you guys saw was a little background on myself as your contact. I'm dedicated to the state of Maine. I work in our government affairs group. I'm a senior executive there. I have close to 15 years of gaming background experience. I worked on the government side for the state of Florida for 12 years in a regulatory capacity for the gaming, which is now the Florida Gaming Control Commission, and we were under a different body at that time. So I've been with GLI for close to 3 years, and I do work with a large regulatory group. I essentially am the East Coast representative for GLI. I cover Maine all the way, following 95 down south to Florida. So obviously I'm exposed to different states, also tribes I work with, so encompass all different regulatory structures there as well. So part of a team that will work with the regulators in terms of helping, growing, concerns, issues, anything like that. Also, the last thing on my slide, I had a QR code. If we were going to use slides for you guys, if you needed more information about who we are, what we do, that kind of thing, we have a website there. And my last thing was to open up for any questions that you may have for me.
So for clarity, you
Sure.
provide two tracks of services, I think similar to BMN. You provide the certification of machines,
Yes.
testing machines before they get to us, which is, I think, what we're being asked to approve here.
Sure.
But you were also providing, I believe you said audit services, you did some auditing here and
Yep.
other services. So Mel, what contract does that come under?
They're separate. Totally separate
So-
contract. Like the contract they just did for the transition, there was a contract done for
So
that
aren't they,
because they were being paid for their service.
do they fall under any approval process because of the audit contract or any other work that they're doing for us in the casinos?
No.
Like, so we don't, there's no oversight of the, like, an audit, who comes in and does an audit? So
No.
that's a unit responsibility, not a board responsibility.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes. The department uses third-party contractors in order to do the services the board directs, or in the case of the transition, I wanted to have somebody up here, to oversee the transition. So that's it. And GLI is a pre-qualified vendor as well. So it makes it a lot easier going out with RFPs every time. Try to.
Pre-qualified with the state.
Pardon?
Pre-qualified with the state?
Yes.
Do you do work with the lottery commission here as well?
And just to answer a question that you had earlier, so we work on behalf of the regulatory body. So we're set up without the regulatory guidance, we wouldn't exist as a testing lab. We don't work for the operations or the entities. We work for the regulatory body. So without your rules, without your standards, anything in place, we wouldn't be able to test as a test lab and certify those machines for Maine. It would be essentially a free for all, and anyone. And this is an epidemic that we see throughout the U.S. is we see all these gray market casinos that are popping up in storefronts and things like that because they're challenging the regulated market by just sending out machines to whomever. these entities are taking or going through different means of access points to getting licensed as a business or, something under the Department of Agriculture or Department of Revenue in states, and operating without any certification or anything. And that's, I don't want to speak on behalf of the operators that are here, but that's the challenge when you don't have a independent test lab that will certify machines for your jurisdiction, based off your laws, your requirements, your regulations. So.
Thank
you. Yeah. Any other questions?
Okay,
Thank you for your time.
all right, so we had a motion, I don't know if it was made or not, but
Temporarily approve testing organizations subject to rulemaking regarding the application process.
Do you want to, do you want to,
temporary?
yeah, did you want to stay at a time for that? Would be helpful. 3 visits. 6 months.
can we say,
Yes.
just do it at the end of the year?
Sure.
That's about- All right,
Is that the start rulemaking or finish?
it's just their temporary approval, we're not done by that. Okay,
I think it's important to know, it's not just like concerned about BMM or GLI. It's the process, it's being consistent, and it's looking at what happens in the future.
yeah, we'd like to have a process. This board isn't gonna be its current makeup. They'll probably won't be here forever, so, people know something put in place. So, all right. So motion for BMM, Tesla, GLI. For temporary approval as a qualified independent laboratory, through December 31st, 2024, subject to, rulemaking for other approval.
For an application.
Yeah, for an application. Okay.
You want a second? I did. I made the.
Oh, okay, all right, I'll second it. All right, any discussion needed? All right, take a vote. Ms. Green?
Aye.
Mr. Hanson?
Aye.
An aye as well. All right, thanks for your patience with that. No, well, does anybody have board business? Joe? Barry? Okay, do we want to meet in July? I think we should meet in July, we'll probably skip August, hopefully. Bill, are you here in July? Yep. So the regular date would be the 16th.
The board may want to consider that instead of meeting in July, if you met in August, the potential republication and comment period could have terminated on the rules that you voted to republish today. Just a practical consideration, but entirely up to you. But the comment period cannot possibly be over by July 16th.
Yeah, I think that the concept of the July meeting is going to be for us to redo the license application. And
What we expect to be in those applications.
well, yeah, we can control those. In what the application form looks like, and also been a request somebody from Maine CDC up here tell us where the money's going. Now they may just do that. But or I think yes. Or we can hold it.
I would do that, Joe. I'd also trust that we have the director to talk about the schedule change. The rationale. That would be July, Tuesday, July.
That would be the normal day. We could push it. Joe, any issues in July?
No, July would work.
Yeah. I think it will be a short meeting, but. All right, so let's say July 16th here, at 9 AM. Yeah, let's do that.
Just so I have my right topics here, all license applications, Maine CDC, process schedule changes, process for schedule changes, whether or not that can be discussed, and then staff needs.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, because what I'd like to, my ultimate goal is, like when you typically submit agency bills,
Mhm.
the board literally could submit something to BLA in advance and say, whether it's changing the cascade, whether it's, a bill just for personnel hire, whatever. We want to do this, let's get set up because now, just in the short time I've been here, we went from 2 casinos to ABW, daily fantasy and sports wagering, maybe iGaming. I mean, it's a rapid expansion. So, we're going to have nearly all new legislators. I mean, there'll be incumbents who come back, but everyone's up for a vote. So,
Yeah, there was, I think, one other time with the previous board where they asked me to submit a statute or a rule or an agency bill. So if you direct me to, I can certainly put that together and submit it.
so let's think about needs, right? And let's start work, so that we can bring something to us in July. Yeah, we can work on it for the remainder of the year so that we're ready to go whenever that period is. You guys submit stuff for. I think it's typically, late fall.
Yeah, it starts October.
Yeah. So let's be prepared for that. All right. And then I guess in the Dropbox, let's make sure you just have the blank applications for
Oh, yeah.
the licenses and
Yeah.
we'll take care with that. Okay. Anything else? All right.
Steve,
Go ahead, Joe.
yeah, before the meeting in July, or maybe at the meeting, whereas we're going to be talking about staffing, I would like to have a better understanding. Is the difficulty with staffing currently a money issue? Is it an inability to hire issue? Or is the staffing currently capped by statute? And that can be just, can be part of Milt's report. I'd just like to have a better understanding of that as we take on this issue.
That makes sense, Mel.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Anything else?
Feel the motion to adjourn?
Yeah, I think it's about.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
All right, take a roll call vote. Ms. Green.
Aye.
Mr. Hanslip.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. 12:35. Meeting is adjourned.
Have a good day, everybody.
Thanks, Joe.